Oh, well, then wait, then what's your issue?
The way you are talking about it. Me over.
Is that
Okay, if
correct?
I ask my coworker in
No,
the
answer the
office,
question. Don't weasel out. Answer the question. Yeah, I'm
if
going to
I
lead this conversation now because you're being a baby. So I'm going to help you out here. So
okay,
tell us now why.
the setup of the conversation ended
No,
up that way.
you feel interrogated, which is wholly different than anything that actually happened. And the
Okay.
reality is, Max, that just because you
You're
feel
changing
some
the
way
subject.
about anything,
You're
no, I'm going
gish
to keep
galloping.
talking.
You're changing
I
the
will
subject.
mute you.
I was saying something
I will
else.
keep talking. If you
But you just don't like one word I
telling
said.
people this is how I feel,
You need
and
to
then
chill.
projecting that world onto the landscape of everyone
God,
else,
we
the
need
reality
another
is you
moderator.
will
Somebody
always
get Brittany
be
in here.
wrong. You will always be wrong because the reality is that how you feel isn't always true. He didn't interrogate you. You felt interrogated. Those are different things.
Great.
And then to put on
You
Stephen the
just say-
responsibility
just say
of
that you
how
disagree.
feel is
Tyler.
precisely oppositional to the thing that you constantly
Okay.
advocate for, which is
Yes.
that people should have to carry each other emotionally. And you make Stephen do it for you all the time. And you've been making him do it, and you've been making me do it because you aren't willing to regulate. You aren't willing to manage yourself. All you want to do is feel how you feel and then project that onto other people. It's cowardly, it's pathetic, and you need to stop doing it, or you are going to continue damaging your relationships online. Probably not with Stephen because he doesn't care about shit like this. But
Oh,
this
it's
is
absolutely
what's
he
causing
does.
tension, is you're constantly projecting onto people, and Steven's being like, yeah, you're fucking wrong, and you'll never move anywhere because you'll never believe anyone because you're so fucking convinced that all your feelings are true because they feel really big that you're never willing to hear anyone else. And that's the problem with this interpersonal dynamic, is you're basically telling Steven he has to engage like you do with other people, which is unfair. It basically tells Steven that he doesn't get to be who he is in relationship with you. You won't accept that. He has to be the ideal version that you have painted for what you would like, ideally what precisely you would do. And that's a shitty thing to do to your friends, and you need to stop doing it to Steven.
Yeah, I don't know, like I said in the beginning, it all feels like dual relationships between you and me and Steven, you and Steven.
Nope, that word does not apply here, and you know that.
Okay. Well, if you don't want to talk about that, that's fine, but that's what I want to talk about.
I'm just saying, use the words right. Dual relationships is a professional relationship with others. None of us have we're all like kind of coworkers, I guess.
No, we do have a professional relationship. We are making money right now. We're not friends sitting around chatting.
But I'm not
We're
your
working.
therapist, and you know that dual relationships is talking about practitioners and professionals to their clients. You know that.
Do you have a word you'd prefer to use to describe inappropriate coworker relationships?
There are multiple elements to our relationship.
Okay, I'm going to use dual relationship.
Can we all agree that Max is going to use dual relationship here, but he doesn't necessarily mean in regards or with respect to a client and a patient, but just highlighting the fact that all of us are occupying several spaces relationshipally with each other. Okay.
Sure.
Okay. So yeah, I think that's and that happened with me and Shaylin in the doll video, which this is still part of, but where she's saying, you're the documentarian, you're the boss, but you're also my boyfriend. Do both. How do you do both? And I guess I feel like it's a power play. You know, the consent, non-consent, and Steven does this too. We'll be talking, and something will get heated, and then he goes, okay, and then all of a sudden, he's saying, well, I'm kind of done with the conversation, unless you're not done. You can say something, but I'm done. But maybe I'm not done. And he's like, anything else? Was there anything else you want to talk about? And it's like, now I'm in the position of, now I'm the one who wants to have the conversation, and I'm in the vulnerable position. Now, if I say something, he's saying, well, you can say something, and I'll see if I want to talk about it. I just feel like in all these different
Can I enter something into the record there? But if I'm doing that, generally, I guess I'll verbalize this. Maybe I haven't done a good job at verbalizing this. Typically, what I feel is that we've come across some impasse that would require at least one of us to re-examine some fundamental view we have of each other or of the world. And I don't foresee that happening in the context of any of our conversation. So I'm usually just like, okay, that's cool. Let's move on. That's generally when I'm saying that is what that means.
Yeah, but the implication is kind of like, I can move if I want, but otherwise you're withdrawing. You're shutting down the conversation.
Unless you want to challenge me. If you hear me say an okay and you're like, that's not okay. I want to do this. I am autistically in love with arguing. I'll have a 12-hour conversation with you about things I disagree with about. But if I'm saying like, okay, usually it's because I think we've hit an impasse that is going to require a significant re-examination of fundamental belief to move past.
But
That's the
you
only
see-
reason why I said that, yeah.
But that changes the dynamic so that now I'm chasing you.
I mean, if you feel like that, maybe I could do a better job at clarifying that. Like, I'm not saying I don't want to talk to you anymore, but what I'm communicating with them, okay, is I understand that we have a really fundamental disagreement. If you want to keep doing it, we can, but I don't want to just have a conversation pretending like, oh yeah, like we're going to resolve this if we keep going back and forth for 5 or 10 minutes. It's probably going to be like a few hours of a conversation.
Yeah, I understand why you would do that, but I'm saying that for me, the experience of it is puts me in this double bind, where if I say, well, what about this? Then I sound like another suck up orbiter trying to extend the conversation after you've signaled that you don't want to have the conversation anymore. But if I don't say that, if I just say okay, and I return your coldness, then I feel like I'm letting you down as a friend. I feel like a lot of the warmth in our relationship necessarily comes from me. I mean, you said that time I interviewed you, you said, if you never reached out to me again, we'd probably never talk again.
Okay.
So
I could do a better job then. You're right. That's a dynamic on my end that I guess I'm not paying enough attention to. So I'm telling you that if you want to keep going, we can. And you're telling me, well, obviously I could, but like the relationship dynamic makes it sound like I'm almost begging you for your time, or I'm trying to just extend a conversation that you're no longer interested in. So I understand how you can feel that way. So I'll do a better job at communicating that. Instead of saying, okay, I'll just explicitly say like, I think we've hit like a bedrock fundamental disagreement here. If you want to really dig down on this, we can, but like I'll make you aware of that, okay? Because I enjoy those conversations, but I don't want you to get frustrated, or if that's where it's gonna go. That's essentially why I'm saying that. But yeah.
I'm also, I think I'm always trying to prove to you that I care more about you than I care about money or fame.
Okay, I think I probably believe that, yeah.
But when I get put in a position where it feels like there's no move I can make, there's no position I can take that is not either smothering you, which you hate, begging for you to keep talking, which you hate, or being cold and like responding in kind and being like, okay, all right, well, I guess we're done too, which I don't think you'd like that either. I don't know if you would say you don't like it, but okay,
let me propose something real quick out of respect for Kyla's time, because I know she likes to sleep very early. Are there any other issues or things that you want to bring up specifically with respect to Kyla? And then if not, if Kyla wants to step out, she can. Because if it's going to be you and me talking for a while, I don't want to have her just like sitting here if she wants to leave.
Sure. I guess
Can I ask a question afterwards? I do have a question. I'm up in my mind.
Sure. If you want to go first, go ahead.
Do you think mine and yours, or probably more important, your and Steven's dual relationship, in your words, is problematic or unethical?
I don't think it is unethical, but I think that it's really complicated, and I think that Steven doesn't like thinking about it or talking about it too. I mean, every time I ask him about it, he's like, I don't think about that. And I think that is... I think in the past I felt like it's harmful to him, and now that he's called me an abuser and half his community has turned on me and a lot of my community, now I feel like it's harmful for both of us to have it be this like confusing. Yeah.
Right. So what's complicated about it? You said it's not unethical, but it is complicated. What's complicated?
What's complicated for me is that I think I know Steven is feeling things that he either can't feel or won't say he feels. So then when I try to be my usually sensitive self, the way I am in interpersonal relationships, and I think I think how I've been with you when we're being interpersonal, or I try to be, that hits like a wall of like, I don't have feelings. Fuck you. I don't care about any of this. Which by implication is,
When you say you, sorry, did you mean Steven or me?
I meant you, but
okay. I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, and that's why I said I like you. I think that makes this complicated because I feel like we have an interpersonal relationship for me that we've interacted very little about, because we're usually interacting professionally. But my personal feelings about you are quite different from my professional feelings, and like ethical feelings or whatever. So with Steven, I think it gets complicated there when I'm trying to be sensitive to stuff that he doesn't want to talk about, can't talk about, or maybe that I'm just wrong about. And then I'm also very sensitive to making people feel like I'm using them. As you could, if you saw the doll video, you know that I want to establish in a very minute, specific way who's getting what and why and where everybody stands. And that's really complicated. That would be complicated with any relationship with somebody who's giving you a career. You know,
right. So like you can't give something back to Steven, and what you want to give him, he seems not to maybe appreciate or reciprocate necessarily.
I don't know. I'm not trying to give something back to him. The thing I'm giving back to him in exchange for my career is professional loyalty. So no matter how bad anything happens with Steven or whatever he says about me, I'm not going to try to burn him. I will criticize him, and I will whatever, but it will all be in the like the confines of a loyal kind of colleague relationship.
Steven, you believe him in that, correct? That he would be loyal?
Yeah, but I mean, it's kind of pointless for me to say that, right?
Why?
Well, because I've said it in the past and he doesn't seem to believe me.
You said that you don't trust anybody till they have a chance to fuck you over.
Yes.
I guess my chances to fuck you over are always, coming along and increasing.
I mean, I think you've had ample opportunity to take big issues with things I've said.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem that you do. The issue that we have, and you won't believe me, you haven't believed me in the past when I said this, is that I don't really defer that much in terms of how I treat people that I trust and I don't trust, because I don't have very many vulnerabilities. There's not a lot of things that are secret or exploitative to me that like I would share with somebody that I do trust versus don't trust.
And I think you're terrified of relying on me.
You think that. I understand you think that.
Yes.
But like, yeah. So, but I can't. But if you don't believe me, though, I mean, then
I think you're terrified of relying on other people.
Well, I'm a very self-reliant person, but there's just not even much that most other people can do for me. Like even my wife, there's not much that I rely on her for. That's just the kind of person I am.
Yeah, but
you think that I'm doing that as a self-defense mechanism because I'm terrified of it. But that's just the way.
Can I ask Max, what do you want to give Steven interpersonally? Like, what do you think you can offer him?
I guess friendship. I mean, yeah. But which to me means.
But like, yeah. Like, what does that look like?
I guess I don't know. It's hard to answer that. To me, it looks like reliability. And
reliant on what, right? That's kind of hollow.
Because he's already said that he trusts you, that you're reliable, that you're loyal. Because I would say, like, you'd probably agree that.
No, we're not talking about the same thing. I'm talking about like that I'll show up for him.
Right. Like in time of need, specifically, like if he has a crisis.
Not even a time of need, just in general. A kind of emotional availability.
Right. But Steven doesn't need much. So when it comes to emotional availability, that's not something
you're now
he's...
injecting the premise. You're saying the premise of your question is that I'm wrong. I don't think that's true.
Oh, you think Steven does need a lot emotionally? He just doesn't, because he said that he doesn't, like he's self-reliant.
Yeah, I said the first thing I said about this was that I part of what makes this complicated is that I feel that I am attuned to things that he says are not there.
Interesting. And then you don't believe Stephen, kind of no matter what he does to convince you, you're not going to believe him. What if that's
no.
the precise barrier to your relationship?
Then we will continue to have a weird, undefined, strained relationship, I guess.
A relationship strained? Well, I guess if you feel it is on your end, that's enough for it to feel strained. I don't feel like our relationship is strained.
But you would say that, wouldn't you?
Well, yeah, because that's what I feel.
Yeah, you would think you feel that. I guess
There are recursive loops. You're joking, but that is the issue. And I even screamed at you at the start of this conversation when I was like, I'm not going to be able to change your mind of this. And then you're like, that's bullshit. But like, it feels like if there is a thing that we have a fundamental disagreement on and you don't have access to my mind, but you think I'm either incoherent or I just don't understand myself, I'm dealing in self-deception. I don't know how we ever move that conversation forward.
I think that's an uncharitable way to put it. I think you're very guarded.
No, hold on. That's not what you think. You don't think I'm guarded. You think that I'm guarded and not aware that I'm guarded. That second claim is the really big one. Because if I was just guarded, then maybe I'd say like, yeah, I don't like to open up to people. I've gotten backstabbed. In the
Isn't it
like, that's
a bit of both?
There's a difference.
Because I feel like Max knows that you're guarded, but he thinks that you're more guarded than you realize.
But I'm saying I'm not guarded. I'm not a guarded person. I'm an incredibly open person. And I'll talk to most people or share a platform with most people as I do. The issue is that people think that there is like a hidden part of me that I'm very scared of showing or that I don't actually trust people or something. Yes. And
that's what you're guarding. I think that you don't believe that people are like good, or that there's a. I think you're pessimistic about people, and everybody is to some degree. But I think that you, I think you have a self-protective view that says that you can't and should not trust anyone.
Is that the role that you want then? Is to like prove to him that that's not like you're at least not one of those people.
Well, I'm trying to prove that to everybody, but
you care about Stephen more than like a random person.
Like Erudite. Sorry.
Probably true.
Yes, but I wouldn't. No, I'm not trying to. I'm not offering to fix him. I'm saying that I think this is a barrier to a certain level of friendship.
But you're offering that level of friendship, correct? If he'd take it, you'd be offering it.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you're talking about creating like new roles in my life that I don't even have right now. Like even for my wife, like there's just like I'm just not that kind of person.
Right, and so not that kind of person. I mean, yeah. So to me, that's just a different way of framing it. You're not that kind of person, but like you could be.
What do you wish like Stephen would talk to you or tell you about, or like what do you feel like is hidden that you wish he would open up to you about?
Nothing specific. It's more just the concept that he has of himself as somebody who is not reliant on other people for emotional needs. That he does not need intimacy with other humans.
Is that what
I don't think I would say that. I mean, no, I definitely need some level of intimacy. But I mean, like, one, I'm a heteroromantic person, so that type of intimacy I'm generally only getting with girls. Mm-hmm. Other types of intimacy, there are a lot of pretty normal human things that people seek that I don't really care about.
Right, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know, but I don't know how to convince you that I either don't care about them or don't need them or don't want them. Like,
why
I
are you
usually
trying to convince me?
Well, because you're telling me that what I'm saying is not true. So either I have to convince you or you have to convince me. That's kind of what
Well, what if we just disagree about the nature of you? I think we disagree about the nature of me as well. I think you think all kinds of things about me that I don't think.
That disagreement requires resolution, or that very disagreement is what you're trying to resolve, right?
I don't think so.
Well, it is, because within the realm of that disagreement lies the relationship that you want to have with me.
It prohibits
but
you.
I don't need to. I don't need to have it though. Like
Well, but if you don't have it, you're unsatisfied. That is like the.
But I don't need to be satisfied. That's what I'm saying. Like I can.
Nobody. That's like saying I don't need to have a thing that I want. But we're talking about things that you want. Of course, you don't need to be satisfied.
No, but
you don't
I'm
need
saying
a house or a computer. But yeah.
Well, no, this is part of your transactional like worldview that freaks me out. Is that you think that if I want something from you, that I'm always trying to get it, and that I will not stop until I get it, and that all I am is what I am trying to get from you. And I feel like you think about a lot of people like that, and it's not true. Like I don't like we can have this unresolved thing. I feel like I'm not trying to talk you into anything. I'm trying to talk about how I feel and how it makes me feel that this bleeds into a lot of our streams, a lot of our conversations where you do the thing where you say okay, or you do the thing where you say anything else, or where you when you told me that I am sort of abusive and I think kind of fucked me over, this all feels like part of that.
I don't know if any of this relates to each other, or if you feel like it all does, but
do you feel like there's a tension in your relationship, Max? Like there's this tension of like what you may or may not, what Stephen at least perceives of you offering, and like this relentless pursuit. Like, are you seeing this tension? Is that what you're feeling?
I don't think of myself as relentlessly pursuing him. I just think
I agree. No, I agree that you disagree with that. I'm trying to understand if you think like there's a tension then, because he's perceiving it. You're saying that he might perceive you as like relentlessly pursuing stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And I think Stephen has said that he doesn't. I don't think
Stephen thinks when Stephen looks at other people, he sees vampires that haven't eaten in thousands of years. And he's like, well, we can. They're like, you want to be friends? And he's like, sure, I guess. But
okay,
he's ready. He's ready to feel those teeth sink into his neck at any moment.
Okay, so I can explain how I see other people. I don't know if I'm pretty sure I've explained this before. Maybe you don't believe me or whatever. But like,
Probably
I think
not.
that people exist on some like spectrum, varying levels of like selfishness. Most people are very selfish.
Yeah.
As a result of that, given the opportunity for personal gain at the expense of a relationship, most people will burn you hard if they have the chance to gain bigly from it. That's how I feel. I don't think you would do that. Doesn't seem like it, especially based on your history and everything. Like, that's not the impression that I have of you. But the issue is that...
Would you?
Would I burn you?
You gave me a little singe. Yeah, would you burn me?
No.
Hold
on. I would never burn you out of a selfish desire to profit or gain from it.
What would you burn me for?
Because I disagree with you on something. But I think that's
why would you burn me for disagreeing? I disagree with you on all kinds of shit, but I don't.
But the issue is that for destiny,
my goal is never to burn you. That's just going to be a byproduct of a critique. For some people,
you wouldn't not burn me.
Because of.
But see, I will go out of my way to not burn you.
Okay, well, that would be
to not disagree. Just to be clear, when you guys are saying burning, it feels like there's two different words going on here.
Yeah, when I was saying burn, I mean like you're like literally like attacking somebody, but typically for the purpose of gaining something else. Like if I'm quote unquote burning you, it's not because I'm like, oh, I'm gonna fuck over Max now to get some viewership. It's usually just because I disagree with what you're saying or doing.
Right, and I'm saying
whereas Max I think sees burn differently. Correct? Wow.
Yeah, I'm saying I will. If I disagree with you, I'm going to go out of my way to present it in a way that humanizes you.
I mean, I go out of my way to humanize the fuck out of you. I don't know if you disagree with that.
That statement itself is dehumanizing. Do you understand that? Like, okay, you fucked me. You fucked me in our last.
Wait, your statement was dehumanizing about me then.
Hey, shithead. You fucked me in our last conversation where you did the same fucking thing where you try to have it both ways, where you say, well, I just think it's a little abusive. I'm not saying it's like totally abusive. I just think it's a little abusive. And where you're saying it, but you also get the benefit of not quite saying it. So I can't really say that you said it, but you kind of did say it. And then you also get to say it friendly. And you did the same thing in the last conversation too, where you said, I'm treating you like a retarded child, implying to the chat, hey guys, whatever I'm saying about MrGirl right now, you can multiply it by 10,000 because this is the nicest way I can possibly talk to this fucking crazy person whose like opinions and beliefs I don't respect at all, who I think is this mentally ill fucking psycho. And you're doing the same thing where you're saying that you're super. I'm super charitable to you. That's an uncharitable thing to say. That's like a multiplier on every attack you've ever made about me. We can now increase the severity of it.
Okay. Do you believe that really?
That you're charitable?
So for instance, do you think if I could utter two statements? So this is what I have said multiple times on stream. When people are like, do you think Max is abusive? Usually what I say is that like, It seems like he could be, but I could like think of a whole bunch of different ways in which their off-stream interactions, or other things they've said, or even maybe things they've said on-stream that I haven't seen, would like dramatically alter the way I would view these interactions. And then I even go on to say, personally, there are clips that you could take of the way that I interact with Melina on-stream and off-stream that would make me look like a crazy abuser. So
Yes.
could he be? Maybe. Or maybe there's an explanation for everything and he's not at all. It could go either way. I could say
You're following
that.
the
That's the same way that I
Goldwater
say,
rule.
sure, I could say that. Or I
But
could say,
that's
based on what
close.
I've seen, if I were to guess, Max is probably pretty abusive. Yeah. Which is probably what I would say if I didn't know the person and I was just trying to get a center spectrum, like read on, like, based on what I've seen, yeah, probably. But, I don't know. You
I
would
don't
prefer
think-
if I made the latter statement to the former?
No, I don't think that. I don't agree with the premise that those are the only two statements you can make.
Okay, well, I'm telling you that those are the only two statements that I would make.
Well, I know
Whether you agree
that's
or
what that's,
disagree,
the,
those are-
that's,
that's what I-
well, that's kind of
So,
the that's kind
can
of
I
what
maybe
I'm
clarify for a second?
mad about is that
Max-
those are the only two statements you're willing to make because they both fuck me.
Max, do you think that Steven thinks you're a crazy person or like a bad person? Those
No.
feel like they might be linked. Okay.
No, I think he's conflating his lack of trust in other people and fear of trusting in other people with how he reads me, and so he's like, yeah, anybody could pull their face off and turn into a monster at any moment. This, when someone asks you if I'm abusive, that's not really the time to like be in that mindset and answer from that point of view. You can just fucking say no next time. That would be great. If you do think,
Okay, I will never, though. I'm not going to lie because we're friends.
I'm not asking
and
you
actually,
to- I don't
and
think
I'll
I'm
say,
asking
hold
you
on,
to
let me make a
lie.
next statement. I am offended that you said that you would pull punches in regards to criticism because we're friends. Because now when you say that, now I'm actually not sure what you think about me. That's actually the most offensive statement that you could say to me. Because now when I think like, okay, well, I think I have a decent understanding of Max. I think we understand each other, blah, blah, blah. Well, now I'm actually not sure. Maybe you actually think way worse things about me than what you've actually spoken on, but you haven't said things because you're worried about either upsetting me or because you think since you're my friend, you don't want to make an honest statement right now. That kind of calls a lot of things into question.
Sure.
Like I think at the very least, you'd know where I stand. Like I'm pretty honest about where I stand about everything. I'd say to you personally the exact same thing
I don't
that
think
say
you know
publicly.
where you stand, motherfucker.
I know
but
exactly where I stand.
I
but
think
go ahead.
you don't. I think I know.
On what?
exactly
Wait,
where
hold
you
on.
stand.
Challenge. I'll challenge you on that. What do you think I don't know where I stand on?
Can I pause for 2 seconds and ask Max one like middle question?
Okay, I'm gonna restate this question.
Restate
don't
it
go
right
too big on
after.
it. Okay.
Okay. Max, I'm
Yeah.
wondering, so you don't believe a lot of what people say. You mind read a lot for people. Do you think it's good for your relationships to assert that Steven means something other than what he is saying?
Good for my relationships?
With Steven, just with Steven.
Yes.
Think it's good for your relationships to assert to the other person, to Steven specifically, that he means something other than what he is saying.
Yes, I think everybody does this, and I think it creates more honesty and trust in the relationship if you tell the other person when you are doing this instead of saying, "Well, okay."
Right. But the
When you
issue
don't
is that when
believe-
you
don't believe that somebody means what they're saying, I think you should
Right.
just tell them. Yes.
yeah, and I think that that's fine. But then when Steven says, I think you're
I don't-
incorrect about
I don't
this.
think I
You-
mind read more than the average person. I think I'm just much more. I divulge.
I'm not
that.
making
I-
any claims about like whether you do something more or less. I've
Well,
just
when
noticed
you
this in your
say
relationship.
Max, you do a lot of mind reading, it implies that I do it more than the average person. And what I'm asking you and chat to think about, and Steven, is that maybe I just divulge more when I'm doing it.
But I don't think Steven has a problem necessarily with you divulging it. I think the frustration probably comes from you not believing him when he says, I hear you, but you're incorrect.
It is very frustrating, and this is why people usually don't divulge when they're mind reading, because it's annoying to have somebody tell you that you're feeling or thinking something that you're not feeling or thinking. It's a very
No, that's not
irritating-
annoying at all to me. What's annoying is that it's unchangeable once you've made your decision. That's the annoying part.
Well, if I'm saying you have a blind spot that I can see and you can't, by definition, it's unchangeable. If you really respect that that's my position, you shouldn't argue with it. You can either be curious about why I think that, or you can just say like, well, I don't want to talk about it. But you can't, if you say like that I'm secretly gay, and I don't know, but you're positive I'm gay. People have that experience of thinking somebody else is gay all the time. There's no
mean, if you
I
wanna
can be like,
tell me-
wait a
Yeah.
second, I jack off to straight
do you
porn
think
all the time.
Steven
Like,
listens to you? Like, do you think he actually listens to you when you guys talk?
wait, I want to just finish with this point. because
Fuck, I
feel
never even got to ask my one fucking
The
question.
question,
Oh, I remember
okay,
what-
I think that you do not. I think that you are not clear on whether you think I'm abusive. I don't think you know.
Oh.
I don't think
But
you
I'm
know
honest
what
about
you
that.
think.
No. I know exactly what I think, right?
Okay.
And now, if I guess if we're making,
So that's the issue.
If we're
right?
making,
Is that
if
you,
we're- well, hold on,
you're
no,
going
no.
to double down.
Sure. So if we're going to make disparaging statements, okay, about what humans are capable of, okay, I think that people can't conceive of people in percentages. Nobody thinks of another person as a 10% rapist. You either are or you aren't. That's how most people think. So I think that you view me similarly. And I'm telling you, that's not how I view people. So if you ask me, right, do I think you're abusive to your girlfriend or not? My legitimate answer is I think that there's a chance that you could be, and there's a chance you couldn't be, but I don't have enough information to feel strongly about that. So I don't really think about that. And it's not really relevant to your and my's like relationship with each other. You could be the most abusive person in the world. Doesn't really impact our relationship. Or you could be not abusive at all. Also doesn't really impact our relationship. So there's a chance that you could be, but I would have to gather more information to have a good understanding of where I stand on it. But I don't really care that much. So
Well, this
because
is
it doesn't impact us.
contradictory. This is contradictory to some other interactions we've had. Like when we had a 2-hour argument, basically about whether or not that interaction with Shaylin, that conversation was abusive, where you said that you think it probably was abusive. Then you followed that up by saying that you were handling me with kid gloves and treating me like a retarded child. Then followed that up by asking me if it's true that I don't allow her to have a phone, which I'm still answering fucking questions in my chat about whether or not I allow her to have a phone. Thank you for that.
Okay, that's
and then,
so wait, hold
and
on,
then
wait, don't
fi-
get
and then-
shallow. Come on.
and
Okay,
then-
so you don't want to have a conversation. You just want to ramble. Go ahead. If you just want to ramble, go for it. But this means you're not interested in my response to anything. Because if you're going to say like 35 things, I
Go
can't
ahead.
respond to anything.
Go ahead.
So okay, so the first thing is there's a big difference, and maybe you don't feel like there is, and maybe I'm a bad communicator, and I might be communicating poorly here, despite my best.
I don't
Wait,
think
hold on.
that's
Okay,
wait.
sure. There's a big difference between saying a behavior is abusive versus you are abusive, right? There are times when I have sexually assaulted people. There are times when I've been abusive towards Merlina, but I wouldn't consider myself a rapist or an abuser, right? So I'm sure there are times in your relationship where you've probably been abusive, or maybe, and that particular interaction that you talked to me about, I might consider that abusive. But I think
Yes.
that's a fundamentally different question than like, is your relationship abusive? Or are you an abusive person? That's a different thing.
The thing is,
Yeah.
though, that we're having a conversation where I'm defending my behavior in that interaction. So when you call it abusive, if I'm saying I stand by this interaction, like me screaming at Shaylin and calling her a fucking idiot outside of like a supermarket in one of my vlogs, there's nothing to really argue about that because I'm like, yeah, I probably shouldn't have done that. In this conversation, I'm saying, no, I think I did a pretty good job for the most part. Then it becomes more of a condemnation, not just of my behavior then, but of my actual character.
Okay, I mean, like, there are going to be times where you have condemnable parts of your character. There's going to be parts of your character that I don't agree with 100%. Do you think, do I need to, is that something that you require of like a friend, that they have to sign off on or approve of every aspect of your character?
No, but I think there's a difference between what you did, which I think was kind of fucking me over, and other ways that you could you could even condemn it, but in a way that doesn't burn me.
The issue, this is where the retarded
Like you
kid
do
gloves
you do
come
this
in.
all the time. No, you do this all the time.
Hold on. And I don't know how to convince you of this otherwise, but like, if I was having a conversation with like Nick Fuentes and I was watching videos of him like doing the same exact actions that you do with a girl, I would probably be much more harsh in my judgments. So I think I am pretty fair with you. I don't think that I'm rushing to any judgments. And I think that my language when I talk about you is very measured. For instance, saying this is an abusive action, but you might not be an abusive person. Or saying that there might be other explanations for why behavior that seems pretty obviously abusive maybe isn't. Or the relationship might not be abusive. There could be a lot of other things going on. You have to admit,
I know
if you're going to give me
warm-
any rope at all, right? That like you like screaming at somebody in a parking lot and like crying people, to most people outwardly, this seems like pretty sweat city, right? You've got to at least see that, right?
Yes, I agree that
Okay.
you are warmer toward me than you are toward Nick Fuentes.
Thank you.
I will give you that, but
Does that
I
feel
don't think-
insufficient?
Yeah, it does.
If you're looking for like me to be, so I would say that I'm charitable, but if you're looking for me to obscure things that I really feel in order to like either salvage your like public character, like
No,
the
no,
best
no.
I can offer you there is to
That's
tell you that
not-
like,
no.
hey, if there's something that you don't want to talk about, then we can just not talk about something. That's fine.
No,
but
that's
I'm not
not what
going
I'm.
to
That's
hide.
not what I'm saying. I'm not asking you
Okay.
to hide anything.
Sure. What are you upset by my actual judgments of
What do you think
or
I
what
would
is-
say? What do you think I would say if everybody started calling you abusive toward Melina, and then, I mean, like, there's just so... Okay, imagine there's an interaction with Melina. People are saying you're abusive, and I say, hey, you want to chat about it on stream? And then I'm like, start out by giving you... The first thing you did was you gave me a level system, ironically, of like consent and caring about other people during sexual interactions, implying that you yourself are at the highest level. We'll say level 5, but I think it might have been level 4. And then implying that I am a couple levels below you. Do you see how even just starting out the conversation with that frame kind of fucks me? And do you understand that I wouldn't do that? You know that if you came on stream to talk about some, like with you and Anna, we did a stream where we talked about your relationship with Anna. I didn't start out with, I was like, all right, Steven, look, there's different ways to deal with this kind of situation. You got 5 levels, okay? You're at about level 2, and I'm going to show you about what level 5 would look like, and I'm going to explain how you're not at level 2. And then I'll kind of just leave it to you to kind of tread water while I, throw more arguments at you. Do you understand that the framing it that way just inherently fucks me?
Are you okay with Destiny having a very different interpersonal style than you? Because like what I'm hearing is like, I can understand maybe why you don't like that. No, you're not okay with that.
Well, hold on. On that, because I would say basically that. Like, let's say that because you're kind of referencing Brittany. Let's say that we were having a conversation with Brittany, and she were to say that. She's like, okay, Steven, I think you're like a 2C or whatever, okay, and I want to bring you to a 3 so you can move to a 4 and a 5. Let's say that she would say that. And let's say in turn, I would disagree. Actually, I think I'm quite introspective. I super disagree. I mean, like, I could still be friends with her. I might disagree with her assessment of me, but it's not going to bother me. Like, she's going to view me in a fundamentally different way based on her view of the world. That's fine. It's whatever. Like,
what, do you sound more sensitive than you?
Would I say you're more sensitive than me?
Is that what you're saying? That it wouldn't bother you? Well, it does bother me. So
what I'm saying is that it feels like you want people to use your pronouns. It feels like you have a picture of you in your mind, and for you to be satisfied with the relationship of somebody, there can be no incongruency with that mental self-image you have and the mental image somebody else has of you. Whereas I'm okay with there being some incongruencies.
But you just said
I'm not saying that makes one of us better or worse.
Wait,
no.
You just said you're not okay with there being incongruencies.
No, I never said that. If you had poor opinions of me in some areas, and I think actually you do, like on some psychology stuff or therapist stuff, I think we probably have some pretty big disagreements, or at least on how to talk to other people.
We just talked about how I think that you are terrified to trust other people because you're afraid of getting hurt and you think the world is full of vampires who are going to bite you at any second. That's a pretty big incongruence between how you see yourself and how I see you.
Yeah, but that doesn't bother me. Like, I understand that you think that. I understand why a lot of people could think that. Okay. But that's not going to prohibit me or preclude me from like having a close relationship with you or whatever. Like,
I have no problem with you thinking I'm abusive.
Wait, I don't think you're. Oh, well, then wait. Then what's your issue?
The way you are talking about it fucks me over.
I could fuck you over really hard if I wanted to.
No,
wait.
You can't.
Career-wise,
you fucked me over.
Does it fuck you over career-wise specifically? Like, is it a fuck over monetarily or in emotional interpersonal levels?
Both.
Like, you feel
that the emotional part's the part I care about. Like, I care about the career part, but only because that upsets me.
Right.
But you
didn't.
I could make like a whole video of like Max, like the one guy made that hippie thing. Like, Max is abusive. These are the conversations I'm drawing from. This is the video I'm gonna put together. And I can even reach out. That would be bad. No. And I could reach out to Shaylin privately because I think you even mentioned if you want to talk about stream, you could. I could use that as a bridge to DM her, like, hey, do you want to chat? Like, blah blah blah. And I could like really go hard if I wanted to fuck you over, right? I don't think I fucked you over at all. I just disagree with.
No, you fucked me over more than you would if you did that.
No way. You can't truly believe that.
How did he interpersonally fuck you over? Saying that?
Because if he did that, he would come off as unhinged and overreaching.
No, I wouldn't.
Well, here's what I think. You want to know what I think?
No.
Does anybody want to know what I think?
I do. I want to know. Yeah, you talk most, so go ahead. Keep talking.
Okay. I don't think that's true anymore, but I will continue.
Okay.
I think that you, the way you condemn people, and you do this a lot, is with a non-condemnation condemnation. And it fucks the person over way more than a straight-up condemnation because there is no moral outrage to push back against. There's no chink in the armor that you can say like, well, clearly this is a personal thing for you. You're saying, hey, I don't really care about this, so I'm not projecting. You're my friend. I'm being nice to you. So we know I'm not overstating my argument, so you can't say that. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not reacting emotionally. and then you slip in the condemnation, so you get to have it both ways of you're condemning me without
Wait,
condemning me.
Could I ask
and
you a question, and then you can
fucks
keep, can I? Yeah.
Okay.
Can I just ask a question about that, and then you can keep explaining this same thing, right? So everything you're saying could actually be true, 100%. I'll acknowledge that, right? It would be a really good way to underhandedly like get you.
Yes.
Wait, Melina, are you? Hold on. Wait, hold on, wait, just real quick on this. Okay, I just want to get this thing. Okay. What you're saying could be 100% true, but could there be an alternative thing where I actually do believe these things, but I'm trying to couch them as responsibly or carefully as I can so that I don't fuck you over?
It is possible that you have no idea what you're doing. That is possible. I don't think you're doing it intentionally. So yeah, maybe it's even like
if I tell you that like I could cause you
but you're
way
wrong.
more, I'm not wrong.
You are
I could
wrong.
cause you way more professional and personal harm if I would act in a more aggressive manner towards you. I absolutely could. You really don't think that's the case?
Not really.
Oh, fuck. Okay, so we just have a disagreement on fact. Go Kyla.
I mean, this is far from where I was going to go. How do you, Max, reconcile what, like, how do you navigate, sorry, there's a super chat in my ear. How do you navigate in your interpersonal relationships when you come to this fundamental, like, breach? Like, how do you overcome that yourself?
What's the breach right now? I feel like we've got a few.
So Stephen feels like basically you kind of have two factual, like, mutually exclusive things that you kind of believe and see. How do you navigate that in a relationship?
Well, okay. First
Yourself.
of all, I want to. I feel like that. Do you understand why I'm saying that you not doing anything that can be accused of you soying out? That can be. You can't be accused of reacting personally. You can't be accused of being personally activated and projecting. You understand why doing that could be, in my you may disagree with me. My perspective, that if you did all those things, that'd be much less destructive to me than if you say, "Hey, I'm going to be really nice to you, buddy." And then frame the conversation in a way where you're setting it up like you're the expert on not abusing your girlfriend, and then say that I am abusive, and that you even after all of our conversations, your official assessment of me is that I might actually not let her have a phone.
Right. Yes, I can actually,
That
especially
fucks me
because you
over.
highlighted at the interpersonal level, right? It actually saves you a little bit at the financial level, but at the interpersonal,
I don't think so. I think it fucks
a little
me
bit
over
because
both.
it leaves you a little bit of charity. Whereas if you
No,
if you
it
really
doesn't.
want to financially
No, it's not
ruin
real
you-
charity. It's not real charity. It's not because
To
Destiny.
the viewer.
When
To the viewer.
When Destiny says, "Hey buddy, hey matey, want to chat on stream about this?" and does his backward smiley face on Twitter, do you think that's real charity? It's not. That's I'm gonna fuck you over. That's not charity.
Right. What I'm saying.
That is how Destiny impugns people. That's how he attacks you.
Would you agree he could have been more ruthless and like how he characterized
this is
your behavior?
Destiny
Yeah, so-
at his most ruthless is saying, "I'm not attacking you. I'm not criticizing you. I even like you. But I think this is a little bit X."
Yes,
And
it's
then-
the most damning.
Yes, it's
I understand.
interpersonally and financially and
But you care about the
professionally.
interpersonal more, right? And so what I was trying to say with the interpersonal is particularly why it can be so distressing at an interpersonal level is because there's no way really to address it clearly, because it's kind of like
No.
nothing really went wrong other than you're like, well, I feel like
you
shit.
can address it, and I'm addressing it now. But I mean,
Right.
yeah, it took me a
It's
while
hard to
afterward.
point at what's like bad,
Yes,
right, or
yes,
wrong.
it's very
Yes.
underhanded. So it took me a while afterward to realize how much he had truly fucked me. And I started talking about it during. I was like, I'm mad at you, but then afterward I got really mad. And now when I explain it, when somebody is like being passive aggressive to you like that, when you try to lay it all out, you sound like a crazy person. This is why a lot of my conversations I just sound like I'm ranting and making things up, because
Yeah.
I'm saying you did this and you did this, and like there's very little to point to. Luckily with Destiny or with Steven, you have this like track record of incredibly mean tweets for us to point to say, yeah, no, that is that thing, that he is fucking you. I know that it's happening. I get to grab onto that. For my
So
sanity.
I could be wrong, and I don't want to speak for Destiny too much, but I think for Steven, why he's saying like, no, dude, I literally didn't fuck you over, is because in his mind, he could have done more harm to like your career and everything by being more ruthless, because he knows that some of his followers, I know you disagree. Hold on. I know you disagree. I'm saying you guys disagree on part of what fucked over means precisely, because I think Steven is placing a little bit more value on particularly the optics and the finances, which he could have harmed you potentially more by going in a little bit harder, a little bit more tactically, because
yes.
a lot of his viewers are overlapping with yours, right? So he could have harmed you more
yes, I
financially,
know,
which is why he would say, I didn't fuck you over.
I don't
I
agree,
was
and I
really
don't-
fucking nice,
and
actually.
I
I know you
don't-
don't agree.
Yes.
I'm just saying that this would be,
I think
could be
so,
wrong.
Max.
But is
So
that
Max, like
correct, Steven?
the sexual harassment analogy is I'm the guy in the office that like walks behind you and I put my hand on your back. And what you're
Yes.
thinking is like, I wish you would just fucking rape me. Because if you did that, I could very clearly talk to everybody else and go, look at how disgusting this guy is. But because you're doing it in such an underhanded, like, oh, teehee, I didn't really know that'd be bad. You're fucking me even harder. Because now you've like put me in a situation where I feel fucked and I can't call you out for it because you've handled it tactfully enough that I would look like the crazy one for doing it while
of
still
your-
getting all of the harms in that you would have otherwise if you
Yes.
would have like actually assaulted me. Yeah.
Part
So
of
I
your
understand.
brand.
Wait, hold on, real quick. I understand your position? Do you feel like I understand? Was that summary was pretty decent in terms of verbalizing what you feel, right?
There's more.
For the most part, I think I got 95% of it. Okay.
Would you let him have like, yeah, that's pretty good for now, Max? And then we
It's
say
exactly
more?
what he's feeling. I know it is. Okay. The issue that I'm having is that can you conceive of another world where I'm actually doing all of that just because I'm trying to be friendly, and I would take the exact same actions, but now you're the one that's trying to divine from me the intentionality.
I think
of
at
doing
this
so.
point, when you make a new internet friend, and your entire fan base starts predicting when the bridge is going to burn, I think it is fair to say that you are either intentionally ignorant of the effect that this has on people or why you're doing it, or you are at least just like ignoring it. So it's you can't really claim ignorance. I think you're too
Why
smart.
not you could just ask me and I could because I thought about a lot of this a lot and I can give you very clear answers, better than the ones that you can try to like Freudian analysis out of me after like
Maybe.
3 conversations, like
Maybe 3.
or however many you've had with me before you decided like this is what he's right.
Yeah.
I'm not saying we've only had 3, but I'm saying that after a few, it seems like you're quick to put, oh, this is how he fucks people over, or whatever, right?
No,
Like,
I didn't truly understand this until this week.
Okay.
When I was
gotcha.
serving out my suspension after being mass reported, after you called me an abuser, I was thinking to myself, how did I get here? I
to
looked in
be
the mirror
clear,
and I said, my name's
called you an
Max.
abuser. I did not call you. I said there are.
Oh, that
tons of-
absolutely. You're right. You didn't really call me an abuser. You're right.
I said you could be an abuser.
Right. Yeah. So part of your brand is that you don't condemn people.
Well,
It's very important.
unless they're super obviously condemnable.
Do you want
no.
Steven to be honest with you though, Max? Like, do you
This
want
is
him
not,
to be
you're
fully
changing the
honest with you?
subject.
I'm just asking. I just wanted to.
I want to
clarify.
just say, can I just talk for a second?
Sorry, we're sorry for interrupting.
Okay. Part of your brand is you don't condemn people. So a condemnation from you would hurt you.
No, hold on. I do condemn people. I won't unless I have a lot of evidence to do so generally. But I do condemn. I condemn Trump and Cruz and a lot of people for January 6th. Like, I'll condemn people. There's good reason for it. But I try not to rush to conclusions because I know a lot of people have their own stories and reasons for why they do what they do.
That's fair.
Especially when you're interpersonally related to them. Like, you're going to be
Well,
a
when
lot
we're
more
interpersonally
slow to
related,
condemn somebody
I'll
when
be
you're
well.
friends with them.
Yeah, I don't even know if I'd say I'd be slow to condemn, but I will do my damnedest to represent the full spectrum of what's possible.
Yeah, you have
assuming that
to
they're-
to condemn a few people to have it be that you don't condemn people.
Oh,
but
man,
generally, there's a.
you view
Look,
this as
can I
me
talk
being-
for a second? Can I just talk for a second?
No, wait. I got to just respond to that real
I'll
quick,
just
and then you
talk
can
for
say
a
whatever you
second.
want.
Yeah, you got to
I'm
talk,
just saying
and
that,
then I'll
like,
talk, and then okay.
Your view of this is that my view of this is incredibly Machiavellian. That it's all calculated. Like, well, of
No,
course I'll condemn
I think
some, so
I
can have-
literally
I don't
think
think
you
he
don't
thinks
know
you're
what you're doing.
calculated.
I don't
Yeah.
think you know what you're doing.
I don't think he's imbuing any intention. I think this is one place where you're misunderstanding is he doesn't think you're doing any intentions. I think he literally thinks you're doing you're trying not to fuck him. And he's saying, but you don't realize that it's fucking me even worse. That's what he's trying to say. He doesn't think you're like,
I also think
weird
you're
plotting.
testing me too. To throw another monkey wrench into here, I think you're
Am I
testing.
unintentionally testing you or intentionally testing
Okay,
you?
Unintentionally.
Max, if I asked Destiny if he's testing you, would you believe his
Unintentionally.
answer no
Yeah,
matter what
no,
he said?
His answer is no, and it is wrong.
Okay.
I believe his answer. I just don't think it's correct. So I think that part of your brand is you don't condemn people, and this has been a big helping thing for you. It's hurt you, but it's helped you a lot in where you're the only person on the left who doesn't condemn people. That's like kind of your thing. You're willing to talk to anybody.
That wasn't always the case. I know that you're a little new, but like I used to be like the most judgmental, condemning person. Like I would jump down people's throats. That's where I like first got my big reputations at. But that's not really as relevant, I guess. But go ahead.
But yeah, okay. But so your current brand,
Sure.
style, and then when asked, this is the worst thing you say. This is the most damning thing you say about me.
Okay.
When people ask you about me, you say, I just think he's really interesting.
Yeah, I do.
I just think he's really interesting to talk to. And then you get to very conspicuously not take a stance on...
Because I won't.
On me. Right. I know. Yeah. And not taking a stance on me is pretty damning.
But I don't take a stance on anyone. I haven't taken a stance on Britney's systems. I haven't taken a stand, and people want me to. I don't take a stance on
when your
things Lauren
when your
said in
subreddit,
2017. I don't take a stance on.
No. When your community turned on Britney, you defended her. Then you started banning anybody who accused you of defending her because of sexual reasons.
True.
Then you said, then you started banning all misogyny, ironic and non-ironic.
Yeah, because the threads were getting.
That's fine. That's
sure.
fine. Yes. When your sub turned on me, your community turned on me, you said he's just an interesting person.
I gotta respond. Or are you gonna gish gallop and you're just gonna try to win by
I'm just saying.
Let him respond.
I'm not trying to change the subject. I'm just saying those are pretty different.
Sure, they were okay, but this wasn't the first time that my community attacked you, right? Keep in mind that like I was willing to, without even knowing you that well, stake out like a pretty risky position in terms of publicly associating with you and platforming the fuck out of you and promoting the fuck out of you. Not because for any position, but because I thought you were really cool. I thought you did cool content and I really appreciate that. I tried to connect you to other people. You get a lot of credit for that because you aggressively reach out to chat with people and stuff. But I'm sure that like for some, like it probably helped.
I credit you with...
Sure. Okay. And I'm not even asking that, but I'm just saying that like you can't say that in the beginning. And I swear to God, I'm not trying to do any weird thing. Like I want all the credit, but I think I did like a decent amount.
You made me.
On. No. Okay. Sure. I'm not trying to say that, but like I made
a
good faith effort.
I think you did.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, then fine. Then if you think that, I mean, I don't think you can turn around and be like, but when your subreddit attacked me, like it was really fucking horrible or whatever. Like I defended you. No,
I can't because I'm not the first person you've made, and then.
Hold on. Sure, but okay,
and then had a fucking big fucking problem with later.
When it came to the whole like pedophile thing and all of those things, like I was very big on like I think a lot of this stuff is humor, or he like tests the boundaries of like edgy shit, right? That would be my equivalent defense, I would say, to the whole like banning misogyny or whatever. Because to have somebody with songs like I am a pedophile and shit, and all the other track record of like asking Vosh questions, all that shit, it would have been pretty easy for me to jump on that bandwagon and go like, yeah, like there's something weird going on with this dude. But that's not the case. There was a post even I made in Vosh's subreddit that they attacked me for, where I was like, I think it was a tweet. Hold on, it was a tweet that I made where I said there's a bigger chance of Vosh turning out to be a pedophile than I think MrGirl. I even was willing to put money on that publicly on who would have an allegation first, right? So yeah, okay. So I just want to be clear then for the record to show that like I don't think that I've been like so defensive of Britney and Lauren and Erudite and anyone else, but when it comes to Max, well, fuck that guy. I just think he's interesting. I defended your character quite a bit in the beginning, and I still do. I think you're interesting, and I don't think you're a pedophile. So yeah, go ahead.
Wow. Okay, I take back everything I said about you not being warm. That was.
But also, I can't make like.
But Steven isn't warm. Steven isn't warm.
I can't make the, and I can't make concrete. I can't make
but that's
concrete.
the issue, right? Like, is you're asking something from Steven interpersonally that's basically like outside of what he can or is willing to offer you.
I'm not really asking. I'm not really asking for it. I'm just saying that I think it's causing tension in our relationship, and I'm saying that I think he fucked me over. You don't fuck people like. You yes, just because you didn't fuck me over that other time and you gave me a career doesn't mean you didn't fuck me over last time we talked. I still think you did.
It
Okay,
seems
wait,
like,
here's-
though, if you just accepted Steven's interpersonal style for what it is, the tension would mostly be removed in your guys' relationship because you would just take Steven at face value for what he says, which is, to be honest, what I think most people need to learn to do with Steven is just take what he says at face value. He just means what he says, and that's it.
No.
You have to do that to improve
I
your
don't have
relationship
to
with Steven.
fucking do anything you say.
You
Wait,
don't.
can I ask
I'm
you?
saying-
Can I ask you a question about this?
Yes.
What if I really did believe this, Max? What if everything I told you I really do believe? What should I do differently to communicate it? Should I just not say it, or?
You mean, how do you... okay. Are you asking me, how would I navigate it if you did something I thought was really abusive on stream?
And then somebody asked you like your opinions about it and everything, like, and you really did think, you're like, oh, that seems pretty, probably could be pretty abusive. How should that be navigated?
I would probably talk about your abusive behavior the way I talk about my own, which is very empathetically.
Now maybe we would disagree on this.
Yeah, we
maybe
do.
Maybe you could poll my audience, but I think that when I talk about
I'm sure your
quote-unquote
audience
abusive
will
behavior-
agree with you.
Well, then what the fuck? Because like I think that I'm pretty.
Can I
empathetic.
answer your
Like,
question? Can I just talk for a second?
Well, because you're making all these claims. Like I think that when I talk about your quote unquote abusive behavior, I even frame it in reference to stuff that I do sometimes.
Can I?
Like,
Yes, I know.
Okay. So I feel like the answer you gave me when I asked you how would you deal with this, it's how I deal with it. But you're telling me you're unsatisfied with how I deal with it.
Okay, I'll give you
go.
specifics then.
Okay, go ahead.
If somebody said, "Do you think that Steven is abusive?" I wouldn't say, "I think he's interesting." I think he's an interesting guy. He might be, but I think he's a really interesting guy. I wouldn't say that. I would probably say, if I thought you were abusive in a clip, I would probably say, yeah, I think he was abusive in that clip. But I also think that all relationships contain some element of abuse.
Oh, what a boring weasel answer. Really?
See, I still think this is coming back to like.
Do you think I wouldn't say
don't
that?
know.
I think that would be the most uninteresting. You could say that, but what a boring
Do you think I would?
answer.
Do you think I would say that?
You
Yes.
could, but if you would, it's
do you think
so
I would?
boring.
Yes.
You could.
That's fine. You can call you. I think, ironically, I think you're weaseling out of listening to my response to you by calling me a boring weasel. Do you believe that I would say that, Stephen?
Yeah, I guess you could. Yeah,
Do you think I would?
if you wanted to. Yeah, it's hard. You say a lot of hard to predict things sometimes. I'm not in the business of making those predictions. Yeah, you could. I think you would. If you're telling me you would, I believe you would.
I would. I think that I get very, when it comes to patients and children, then the claws come out. Other than that, other than caretaking relationships, when it's a couple, you would have to do something pretty fucking horrendous for me to say, what the fuck, this is wrong. So I would say we're looking at an abusive dynamic, but like lots of relationships have abusive dynamics, and like we don't know what happened before or after that. And I've seen myself do shit that I thought I would never fucking do in a million years. Stuff
I feel
said,
like this is like the same shit that I say. What am I missing?
you may feel like that, but that's not true.
The issue, though, Max, is like, does Steven have the space to do the same level of compassion, but in a different way because he's interpersonally different than you? 'Cause it seems like you're saying he needs to do it in the way that you're prescribing.
Are we disagreeing that he's colder?
No, I already said that.
Okay,
I told you,
Stephen,
that
do you
he's
agree
colder
that
as
you're colder than me?
I probably a bit, yeah.
Okay, so
Or we don't
that's what-
disagree. I'd probably a bit colder than you. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So that's what I'm speaking to. As I think if it's not about the condemnation, it's about, I guess, like the coldness plus the generalizing a lack of trust you have for everybody, but making it sound like it's specific to me. Like you're like, well, I don't know, maybe you don't let your girlfriend have a phone. It's very damning, even if you think that about everybody. You're making it sound like you just think it about me, and now I have all these people. People are not all asking each other whether their girlfriend's allowed to have a phone. Your fucking fans are asking me. Because
you're the one that brought it up.
I didn't bring it up. Someone in your chat said it, and then you asked me. I did not bring it up. Someone in your
wasn't it in response? Wasn't it provoked by you saying something along the lines of like, and you might have said this ironically during it, but something like, "I don't let Shayla on the internet because I want to protect her from the evil things on the internet." Didn't you say
asked
something
me,
like that?
You were trying to get me to tell Shaylin to go on stream with you, which again
No,
is just
wait.
it's just you trying to fuck me.
Okay.
Do you think I would interview
I'm
Melina?
gonna-
Do you think
I'm
I would?
gonna-
You remember when I interviewed Melina? I did interview Melina once. We had a chat. You know what I said at
Mm-hmm.
the beginning? I said, I don't want to talk about your relationship with Steven.
Okay.
You know why I said that?
Why is that?
Because I didn't want to fuck you over.
Okay, that's great if you feel that.
Yes,
but,
it is great of me. That's the kind of thing.
You
know, if you see the difference.
I know you have a really hard time empathizing, but I just want you to know that if I was similar to you, I would employ the exact same logic that you did, and I would say that's an even more damning thing. Like, why would you interview my wife and start off with, "I'm not going to talk about your relationship with your husband because if I did, I'd probably fuck him over." What the fuck? Like, I'm not offended because yes. One to one, that logic
well, I can
maps
explain
on.
the difference.
You can try, but so my inference is, and you can explain why it's not that way. It sounds to me like if you talk to her, there's a non-zero chance that you're going to prove that I'm like a really horrible husband. I'm like either abusive or something really fucked up is going on. That's what it sounds like to me. But go ahead, explain to me otherwise.
No, I just don't think it's appropriate to have a conversation about your relationship without you there. I just think it's...
Why can't I say I don't think it's appropriate for me to say whether or not you're an abuser?
You said it seems kind of abusive. You did say it.
I said a particular behavior was.
Okay, whatever. I'm not.
You keep getting
stuck on the words. Can I just talk for a second?
What if I punch Melina
the whole time? And I don't think you're listening to Destiny.
I want to talk.
Okay, you can talk. I'm just gonna ask one question, then you can say what you want. Let's say that I punch Melina in the face on stream. She comes in and she's like, "Steven, I want to go somewhere." It's like, "I'm playing League of Legends." Boom, and I punch her in the face. And somebody was like, "Max, do you think that was kind of abusive?" What would your response be on stream when you were asked that? And then you can say whatever you want.
I would say yes, that's abusive to punch your wife in the face. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know what your problem is, but okay, say what you want to say.
Okay, if you still don't know what my problem is, then I can reiterate it for you. It's not what you said. It's not even your position. It's the way you are saying it. As I said, if you said, "Max, I think you have a serious problem here. I'm worried about you. I think your relationship is abusive. I think bad stuff's going on, and I want to try to help you."
I don't want to help you, though. That's not my goal.
I know. But do you see how you're now changing the subject? But if we go back to the subject we were just talking about, you can see how...
No, the difference is you engage...
Can you guys just shut the fuck up and stop interrupting me? I literally can't... I don't want to do this anymore. I can't talk about this with... I need Erudite. I need you to leave, or I need you to let me finish talking when I'm talking. I need you to stop.
So just to be clear, none of this is like on me. So I'd appreciate like this like hard...
No, I'm talking. I want you to shut the fuck up. I want you both to shut the fuck up. Is
that you're talking about 70% of the time in any time.
That's not even true.
Yes. This one-to-one dialogue you've had with Steven, you have unequivocally talked.
I understand. I want to finish saying what I'm saying, and then you can respond. Does that work for you?
Can you say it in 2 sentences?
Probably not.
Can you try? Say it in 2 sentences.
I'll try, but I need you guys to both let me finish what I'm saying. Because the tag team dynamic is really fucking irritating.
I've been very, very neutral almost the whole time.
I just said that I don't think that's true. So saying the opposite of what I said is not really an argument. I understand you don't. Nobody thinks they're tag teaming somebody. I know you don't think you're doing that. That's just what I think. Steven, you're changing the subject. You're changing the subject from the way you're saying something to what you're saying. I'm saying you could condemn me. Your position could be that I'm absolutely incredibly abusive, but you could still present that and talk about that in a way that is warm and non-condemning. And your position can be that I'm kind of maybe abusive, and you can present that in a way that is extremely condemning. You did the second one. So when you say, "Oh, you want me to hide what I think," I'm not saying I want you to hide what you think or that you should. I'm saying there's the way I would talk about an abuse, you punching Melina in the face. I would certainly condemn your behavior, but I would do it in a way that didn't fuck you over. And I would also like to respond to the other thing you said, is that I feel uncomfortable. It's not to protect you so much as protect me. I feel uncomfortable being in the position of talking about somebody with their partner in front of thousands of people. I'm not even.
Is that a boundary that you have with Steven, that you don't want him to talk about your relationship when she's not there? Is that a boundary that you're asking for?
No.
So why are you comparing your interpersonal style to his?
Again, this is the tag team thing. Steven said, "Wait."
No, I'm asking you.
Yes, no. I want to explain why I said that, because now you're asking me why I'm saying it. Steven said that if he applies the same logic that I used with the kid gloves thing, then it implies it's a horrible thing for me to say, I don't want to talk about you with your wife behind your back. And I'm saying no, those are different, and I want to explain why they're different. The reason is I'm not saying that there's some terrible thing that would come out about you or that she would say something terrible about you. I'm saying that it is I feel like inherently fucks you over the fact that I'm talking about you with your partner in public when you're not there to represent yourself. I don't feel comfortable doing that because I think it's wrong. But you, asshole, you, okay, Stephen, want to interview Shaylin about a conversation where you're going to fuck me. And you're going to fuck me in the interview with her. You're going to do the same fucking underhanded, cold thing and try to make me look as bad as possible.
Okay.
And
do you think you're interpersonally better at relations than Steven is? Do you think your interpersonal style, the boundaries, the way that you try to protect the people that you love is overall better than Steven's?
I think there are... No, overall, I don't know, but I think there are certain things. It's not even better. It's just what works better for me. Like if you don't like certain things or you don't want certain things, then the way you live is better for you.
But then why don't you just tell Steven what your boundaries are, and then Steven gets to decide whether or not he's willing to work within those.
I did. I set a boundary. I said Shaylin is not going to come on stream. I'm not going to have her on stream.
Right? I never tried to pull her off or anything.
Me saying she's not going to come on stream and I want to protect her from the chat. If 5 minutes later you say, is it true that you don't let her have a phone? I don't know if that is totally respecting my boundary. I think that you kind of fucked me over a little bit.
Unrelated. Did he respect your
You may think it's completely unrelated, but I don't think it is.
Did he respect your boundary about not bringing Shaylin on stream? Is that correct?
Okay, if I ask my coworker in the
answer the question. Don't weasel out. Answer the question.
I already said no. It's not respecting my boundary. No.
How not?
I'm explaining it.
Yeah, I'm going to lead this conversation now because you're being a baby. So I'm going to help you out here. So tell us now why that wasn't respecting your boundary. Your boundary was Shaylin can't come on stream.
Isn't it true that little kids insult each other by calling each other?
So are you telling me that you stated a boundary and behind the boundary was a second secret one that you didn't tell him about, and Steven actually crossed this one? Well, he didn't cross the boundary that you stated. If you wanted a different boundary, you should have said it.
I didn't say he crossed it. I said he didn't respect it.
What's the difference?
I'll tell you. If I ask a coworker on a date and she says no, and I say, oh, okay, well, I accept your answer is no. And then I go to the lounge and I say, Sarah's pussy stanks, as loud as I can. While I would be technically not crossing her boundary, not forcing her to go on a date with me, I'm not exactly respecting it either.
They're wholly different boundaries. The first boundary is I don't want to go on a date with you. And then there's a lot of social convention boundaries as well. For example, typically when people say, no, I don't want to go on a date with you, while that's unrelated to what you stated, most people also don't want people making loud, negative comments about their genitals.
There's also another boundary that's crossing.
Boundaries. Well, they're different boundaries. Okay, do you understand that?
Well, okay. So in my mind, if the two behaviors are linked to one another, then the person would probably feel like their sexual boundaries about saying no to the date were also not being respected, because they're saying, well, if I say no to a date, then somebody yells about my... Well,
they would have felt that a different boundary was crossed. Okay. They would have been like, yeah, he didn't force me to go on a date, but then he did say really creepy stuff about my vagina.
I'm telling
which
you
is typically an implied boundary, right? There's some social contracts that we work with.
Yes,
one social contract is probably don't loudly say shit about people's genitals.
It's really
These are
hard
separate boundaries. One of them is implicit and one of them is explicit.
Kyla, it's really hard to...
the explicit one.
It's really hard to argue...
the implicit one.
It's really hard to argue that two things aren't connected. So you can just say that I'm wrong for connecting them, but that is how I feel.
I'm not saying that they're unrelated. I'm saying they're two separate boundaries. And what you're saying to Steven is, this was my boundary and you didn't respect it. But he did. He didn't respect your implicit boundary that was connected to that.
I know. We both are clear on where the other person is. And I have no further comment about this.
Wait, so you understand?
For all the implicitness, then, am I not supposed to bring up anything related to Shaylin ever? Just so I can understand.
No, I like talking about chilling with you, actually.
So this is the issue, right? Is this boundary?
It makes it feel like you're part of the family.
Your whole shtick is that you're explicit and you say things that people don't say, which means you say the implicit stuff.
That's not a shtick. It's called a personality.
Stephen not understanding that there was also an implicit boundary attached to that is only your fault for not expressing that. That is your responsibility exclusively. You can be mad that he didn't respect it, but there's no way he could have mind read that existed.
If Stephen doesn't understand that asking somebody if they allow their girlfriend to use a phone could potentially start a harmful rumor about them that they don't allow their girlfriend to use a phone, then I think he needs to read some Internet 101. But I suspect that he does understand.
I would make the same statement about you, that when you have videos that outwardly to any normal human being would look like this could be really abusive, and then you make an utterance saying like, no, I want to protect her from evil things online. And I think you even knowingly made that statement knowing it sounds a little bit dicey. You can't be surprised when the question comes up. Like,
how would you have said it?
Well, I mean, I probably would have said the same thing, but I wouldn't be upset when somebody would ask me for clarification otherwise.
Oh, so when you say, hey, I heard you don't let your girlfriend have a phone, you're just asking for clarification.
I didn't say it. I think I
just asking questions with Destiny, everybody.
The problem with you saying
that's not a fair representation of what Stephen did. And I think you like Stephen and know Stephen well enough that you should be charitable to your friend in this situation, right? You've already said that you don't think he's intending harmful things.
Hyper charitable.
You are not. And you
man.
are.
This is I'm at 1%. I'm at 1% here.
The problem is that you have this thing in your mind about just asking questions.
Yeah.
But there are times when people are just asking questions. But there's no way for you to know because you're always trying to like imply there's like some insidious or mischievous.
Okay, so do you think that asking that question had a negative impact on me?
Yeah, of course it did a little bit. But I mean, it was kind of funny. And you walked me there by making incredibly fucking stupid statements regarding like, oh yeah, I try to protect her from evil people online. If you're willing to go far enough to make a statement like that on its face sounds horrible, of course I'm gonna joke a little bit back. Yeah, of course.
I don't think that there is a graceful way when someone is interrogating you, but pretending they're not, about whether you're abusive to your girlfriend. And then say, hey, can I interview your girlfriend about whether you're abusive to her?
Do you think it's helpful to characterize your friend talking to you about a situation where you were under a lot of shit already and then saying that it's an interrogation is the best way to characterize your friend's conversation with you? That feels like a really, really big straw man of who Stephen is. And you and I we all agree that he's a little bit more cold, but I don't know. He is not that cold.
I think
absolutely not. If he wanted to interrogate you, he could have asked so many leading questions to make you look fucking horrific, and it would have been great for him.
I don't think
he didn't do that.
I don't think that would have worked that well.
It would have worked exceptionally well because you say the most outlandish things, Max.
I don't think he's intentionally trying to interrogate me. I just think that the setup of the conversation ended up that way.
You feel interrogated, which is wholly different than anything that actually happened. And the reality is, Max, that just because you feel some way about anything,
you're gish galloping. You're changing the subject. I was saying something else.
I will keep talking. If you
just don't like one word
telling people this is how I feel and then projecting that world onto the landscape of everyone else, the reality is you will always be wrong. You will always be wrong because the reality is that how you feel isn't always true. He didn't interrogate you. You felt interrogated. Those are different things.
Great.
And then to put on Stephen the responsibility
just say that you disagree.
You is precisely oppositional to the thing that you constantly advocate for, which is that people should have to carry each other emotionally. And you make Stephen do it for you all the time. And you've been making him do it, and you've been making me do it because you aren't willing to regulate. You aren't willing to manage yourself. All you want to do is feel how you feel and then project that onto other people. It's cowardly. It's pathetic. And you need to stop doing it or you are going to continue damaging your relationships online. Probably not with Stephen because he doesn't fucking care about shit like this. But this
absolutely he does.
Is you're constantly projecting onto people and Stephen's being like, yeah, you're fucking wrong and you'll never move anywhere because you'll never believe anyone because you're so fucking convinced that all your feelings are true because they feel really big that you're never willing to hear anyone else. And that's the problem with this interpersonal dynamic is you're basically telling Stephen he has to engage like you do with other people, which is unfair. It basically tells Stephen that he doesn't get to be who he is in relationship with you. You won't accept that. He has to be ideal version that you have painted for what you would like, ideally what precisely you would do. And that's a shitty thing to do to your friends. And you need to stop doing it to Stephen.
I think that your dual role in this conversation is causing problems. Are you the moderator or are you doing something else?
I think I became
she's
the
moderating
moderator.
now.
Okay.
She's girl bossing.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I feel like
Yeah,
if you want the power to ask questions and stop us from interrupting each other and stuff, I feel like you should not.
I don't need any recommendations from you about how I should or should not engage in this conversation. I feel completely
Okay.
comfortable with it, and if it isn't good, I'll talk to people that I respect about it.
Okay.
Man, there's a lot of vitriol in this room right now, going in all directions. Well, none is coming from me actually because I'm chill. But you guys,
Of course, yes.
you guys are both
Yes.
something else. Notice how I say that I'm chill, even though I'm not, but then it like puts it in the viewer's mind that I am, and now you can.
I did notice
for it,
that. Thank you
because I
for
said
pointing
in
it
the
out.
most
Though.
chill way. Yeah.
Thank you for pointing it out. Yeah. So, Shaylin. Yeah. I think that.
Wait,
Yeah.
and then you can go on, okay? So, Kyla's being kind of mean, but
I
my
see what you mean.
my chief criticism of you, and it has been always,
Yeah.
is more or less kind of what she said. So said in other words, my worry sometimes is that you have a way of viewing the world and how other people process things. And I just heard you say it in the rectal conversation, especially in the way that you talk about mental illness. And you've done it in the ways you talk about sex, where I feel like you have a view of the world and you very much project that onto other people. And I don't know if Kyla was getting at this when she was trying to ask you, is your way better? Because it feels like if you either aren't telling people that they have to process things like you do, then you're just already assuming they do. And if they say otherwise, it's because they're engaged in some level of self-deception or they're lying to you about it. And that can be really frustrating. I pointed this out in conversations you've had with Lauren before, that it can be frustrating for another person to overcome your assumptions about them because they seem like fixed and immovable. That's the feeling that I get.
Okay. Do you see how? What if I'm right and you're wrong? Can we do a specific example? I know we can kind
Yeah,
of
sure.
walk through, and I'll
I
walk
love
you through
specific examples. Yep.
Okay, I'll walk you through my thought process. So, will you tell me a example of what you're talking about?
It could be anything related to me, I guess, if that's because that's kind of what we were talking about. On whether do I trust people or I don't know, whatever. You can pick something, right?
Okay, so my characterization of you is that you are scared and you don't know that you're scared of trusting other people. And you're saying a thing you worry about with me is that you can't convince me that that's not true and that I'm stuck in believing that.
Sure.
Okay,
Can I? Well,
so, like a trans person.
in regards to that, because you brought up a specific example, right?
Okay.
So here are some things that I'll say about that, and then you can tell me if you want me to continue talking or shut the fuck up, okay? This is something that I've thought about a great deal because I have been fucked over by a lot of different people before streaming even in my life. So one of the things that I wonder is, especially because I have a lot of there's a lot of characteristics that I might have in terms of events that have happened to me in my past and in terms of how I relate to people presently that seem like they could be indicators of trauma. So these are things that I've thought about before. Is there a chance that I am responding in some way that is like a trauma response? Is there a chance that my behavior is like maladaptive? Is there a chance that I'm missing something, that I'm engaged in small? These are things that I've thought about quite a bit before. Now, do you agree that it's possible for me to think about these things and come to some conclusion on my own, or am I incapable of doing that? And then my next question is going to be...
You're incapable.
Okay. So then my next question is going to be, let's say, we both agree there is some fact of the matter of whether or not I'm doing this, right? Whether or not I am engaging with people in a cold manner as a maladaptive defensive mechanism, right? We agree that that's possible, whether I am or am. There is a fact of the matter.
I'm not sure if I think of it as a factual thing. I think I more think of it as like a lens.
Well, no, hold on. There has to be whether I am or am not doing something.
I don't think I agree with that.
Fuck. Okay. Then epistemically, we can have no.
Well, let me put it this way. Let me ask you this.
Well, let me just finish this, and then you can do you can say what you want. Because we have to agree that there's a fact of the matter. Because my next question is, if there is a fact of the matter, how do we resolve a disagreement to figure out who's right or wrong? How can we ever do that about my mental state?
I don't know if we have to, but you mean how could we?
Well, come on, we want to. Don't say we don't have to. Nobody has to do anything, right? Melina, how do we fix our relationship? Well, we don't have to. I could just go back to Sweden. Okay. Clearly, we have a disagreement
I think
here,
part
and
of
we
your
want to- we
defense, but
wanna
I think
have some
part of your
level understanding.
defensiveness relies on you not figuring this out. So it's not. Look, the thing is that if you figure it out, your guard disappears. So you.
Yeah, but then have you
You have
created
a- you have a-
problem? You're not religious, right? If somebody told you that they believed in God and they made all their decisions on that, would you ever appeal to the fact that, like, well, if you have an unfalsifiable belief and you're using this to make important decisions about your life, isn't that kind of a bad thing? Would you not say the same here, that you've essentially created an unfalsifiable lens through which you believe I view the world, and we have no way to figure out who's right or wrong? Isn't that almost like a pointless statement to even make?
No, and I would like to respond when.
Okay, go for it.
Okay. Do you believe that you have an unconscious? Do you believe that you have? Do you have feelings and thoughts that you're not aware of and can't be aware of?
The problem is I don't know what you mean by that. I'm probably going to say yes, but I'm cautiously saying it because I don't know what you mean by that. But probably, depending on how you're using it. Now, if you're going to say there's like a whole second Steven inside of me, two wolves living.
No. I'm just saying, like, do you believe that I have an unconscious? Do you think that it's possible or likely that I am projecting sometimes?
That we engage in behaviors that we're not outwardly aware. Yeah, of course. I probably do the same. I would have to say, yeah. Most human beings probably do.
So
yeah, sure.
I'm feeling things that I don't know that I'm feeling, and I'm thinking things I don't know what I'm thinking. That's what Kyla just yelled at me about for like 5 minutes, right? Is that I don't know what I'm feeling, and so that leads me to think things that aren't true about what is going on about other people, and say things that aren't true because I'm projecting my own feeling. And the projection really is a projection of the unconscious. You don't project what you know you're feeling. You project what you don't know you're feeling because you don't know that you're feeling it. And then if you become more aware of what you're feeling, you're less likely to do that. If I know that I'm angry about something, if I'm having some mommy issue, then if I'm thinking about my mother and I'm feeling terrible about my mother, then I'll be more likely to deal with that internally. But if I don't realize that I'm being triggered about my mother, then I start calling women demons. Like that.
Sure. I would probably like fight you on specifics of this, but more or less I would agree with this model. Bringing awareness to some kind of subconscious thought means that you're probably going to be less likely to project it, at least like in a super outward manner to other people. I probably agree mostly with this, yeah.
Okay. Do you believe that you have an unconscious?
Insofar as how you're talking about it so far, yeah, of course. Some underlying mood or vibe or feelings that I might not always be aware of if I'm not being very mindful about it or something. Well, sure.
Okay. And I think a big part of being empathetic is being able to connect to the feelings and thoughts of people that they themselves are not aware of.
Okay.
So you're looking at someone's behavior and their behavioral patterns and stuff they say and their facial expression, and pairing that with your own kind of emotional imagination. And through and knowledge about the world. And like I see you do this on stream all the time. You'll say, well, a lot of times people will do this, but they don't realize they're doing this. And based on my like life experience or knowing lots of people like this or whatever, I am deducing that it's possible that they're doing X, Y, Z. I think this is something we all do. Okay.
Sure, we can. Now, I'll enter this into the record and then you can keep going.
Yeah.
I agree with you that we all do that. But the difference is that, what's the opposite of Bayesian? When I say like a Bayesian probability, does that make any sense to you?
No, I think you said this once to me before.
Sure. Okay, so like
I forgot.
Yeah, when I think of somebody like this, so I might think that like
the 80% of me letting Shaylin have a phone thing like that.
Well, so like I might think that like okay, I believe that Max has like a 25% chance that he's like doing this particular thing to Shaylin. Now that's a percentage in my head. As I collect more information over time, I'm gonna adjust that up. And I'm going to adjust that down. So maybe when I first met you, I'm like, there's like a 50% chance that this dude's going to fuck me over. And then we go through a couple of events together. You don't publicly lash out at me, even though I've said some pretty scalding things about you in a relationship. It's like, okay, I'm adjusting this down and down and down over time. It's like a 25% through 20%, probably like a 15% chance you'd fuck me over. It gets lower over time, right? And then maybe you go through a really huge situation. It's like, okay, it's like a 5%, maybe a 1% chance, right? Over time. I'm adjusting that probability as time goes on. It feels like to me, while we make the same assumptions about people, it doesn't feel like you approach it in a Bayesian sense, but it's in a far more fixed sense that we make the same assumptions about people, but I'm willing to change my assumptions as I see new behavior. But it feels like for you, you make an assumption about somebody, and then you'll find a way to make every other behavior fit that initial assumption, and there's no way to change it or move you off it. Yeah, go.
Okay, so the empathy I'm talking about is different from, you're talking about like cat empathy. where when I sit down on the bed and one of my cats is on the bed, she's like, what are the chances that he's going to sit on me? The ears perk up, the tail starts flapping around, and they're like, well, this has happened like 500 times and he's never sat on me, so I guess I'm okay. And then they sit back down. You're trying to predict behavior in the future based on signs you see now. But I'm talking not about predicting your behavior. I don't know what the fuck you're going to do. I'm talking about drawing an emotional landscape in my head of how you're feeling and how you work.
Okay.
And I'm talking about, it's not written in stone. That I think you're conflating you not being able to change my mind about it with it being written in stone. But the only person who can't change my mind about it is you, because we're talking about your.
But that seems like an issue, right? And I see
it might. Can I just explain this?
Go ahead. Yeah, go.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm talking about feelings you are not aware of, and more than just not being aware of them, the way you function in your life, you can't be aware of them.
I reject that mental model, but go ahead. Just saying that.
I'm saying there are certain things you do and ways you behave that you are reliant on being able to do that I think would fall apart if you knew, or have to change if you knew how you're feeling. So part of your part of what I see as your guardedness is predicated on you not knowing how you're feeling.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but that's like a mental model that I would reject. I don't think I could ever truly believe that somebody has unless we want to get into really esoteric things like DID, which I don't even believe is real.
No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm just saying that you.
I understand what you're saying.
I'm saying you're a repressed dude.
I understand what you're saying. I don't believe in repression. I don't believe that's real. I don't believe that's a real thing. I don't think that there are thoughts that people have that are absolutely actually inaccessible to them that like an independent person could observe.
I'm not talking about thoughts, more like beliefs and feelings.
Are you a staunch psychodynamicist, just to understand? Like, would you say psychodynamic is, like, you use kind of like psychodynamic? We have a degree in psych, so I know that you know what psychodynamic, or psychoanalytic maybe is a better word.
It may be, but I want to just say what I think.
I'm just trying to understand. I just had the question, sorry.
Okay, yeah, maybe. Okay. So I believe that you have feelings that you're not aware of and that you're not comfortable with. And I think that's true of everybody. And so whenever I think somebody else is feeling something, if it's like that they're secretly gay and don't know it, that person cannot then convince me that they're not. They're the only person who can't convince me that they're not. Because we're talking about, let me just fucking finish, for the love of Jesus Christ in heaven. We're talking about your blind spot, okay?
Yeah,
here's an
analogy.
I'm saying,
you're going to say the same thing 50 times. I just want to ask you a question. You can keep talking. I'm just asking you questions.
But you reject the premise. So you're going in fucking circles.
You
just asked me if I think you have DID. You're out of your fucking mind.
I didn't say that at all. Hold on. I'm just asking you a question so that you don't restate the same thing for the 50
minutes.
Bro,
I got one thing to say. I've been trying to say it for like 10 minutes, and then you can ask me or say whatever.
Okay.
I've got one thing to say.
I hope for the love of God, you better say something new. Go.
Logically, it follows. If you cannot be aware of some of your own feelings. Then
only you can be aware of it. You're restating the same thing you've said a million times.
No, let me finish. Let me finish.
Be careful.
You cannot be aware of all of your own feelings. And I cannot be truly aware of your feelings either, because I'm just imagining what they're like. That is what empathy is. So neither of us can truly be aware, and it cannot truly ever be reconciled as a fact one way or the other, unless you shoot up a school and then we're like, oh, I guess he was kind of upset. Barring some kind of explosion like that, we will never know. And so, so there's no point in fucking arguing about it.
Okay.
Because logically, it's a box you can't look at.
Restate. I understand. Yes. Okay.
So why are you arguing?
How I'm in. Because we have different mental models, right? Okay. Or different models of the mind, I guess. Okay. So here's a question, because you brought up the gay thing, okay? And we can bring up stuff related to me or profession. Okay? Here's my question, okay? If somebody had a belief, if I thought that and also we disagree on the definition of empathy, hardcore, I just want to put that out there, aware of that, okay? Let's say that I'm having a conversation and there is a fact of the matter about their state of mind that I disagree with their own analysis of. I always feel like there is a way that I could probe to bring about some awareness of that person's state of mind. So for instance, when you bring up the gay example, I feel like there is a line of questions that I can have where I can bring about a person's awareness that there's at least something going on there that needs to be analyzed. Do you ever get horny when you look at a guy? Do you ever feel like you don't belong around women?
Yes.
Do you ever masturbate to things of men? When you're watching porn, do you look at the dick more than the pussy, right?
Yes.
There's like some, even if they haven't thought about it like explicitly, there's some line of questioning I could do. So my issue is that like, you're telling me you're telling me that you feel like there are thoughts that are inaccessible to me and you can't even do anything to bring an awareness of these thoughts to me. There's no line of questioning. There's no way that I could be aware of my blind spots. I have to jump into the pool of Max and say, Max, reorganize my mind because I'm so clueless. I can't even figure it out. You can't even make me aware of it.
Okay, I have a 2-part answer to your question.
Go for it.
I think
it can be a 3-part answer if you want.
No, it's just a 2-part. I think you could become much more aware of your own feelings and thoughts than you are. Absolutely. I think that you should do that with a therapist, though. I don't think I should try to do it because that would be a triple relate. I mean, like, I think friends can talk about their feelings with each other, but you're so guarded and like tightly wound about it, and you're so controlling. You're going to interrupt me now because you're so controlling about the conversation. You won't even let me like talk freely about the idea that maybe you have feelings. You've got a fan base of like a fucking million people who will just like shout like, no, Destiny doesn't care. Destiny doesn't care about this. Destiny doesn't give a fuck. Blah blah blah. That's like you got armor. You got people wearing copies of your armor. You got armor made of people. You got it's a whole story about you not having vulnerability. So you're pretty fucking protected. So I don't think me trying to tear down that protection is a good idea for either of us. But I do think that you can dig into that somewhat if you wanted to. The second part is I think there's always going to be another part that you can't dig into. There's always more. There's always an unconscious. I don't think you can. You're feeling things faster than the words can come to your mind to describe what they are. Unless you're meditating 24 hours a day, there are going to be times where you're feeling things and things are happening in the back of your mind that you're not aware of. And so you can't ever get all of it, but I think you get a lot more than where you're at. Yeah. I think you could be much more introspective.
Okay, so if I tell you that I'm willing to explore any of these things, I'm not guarded. I sure as fuck don't let my audience make decisions about my emotional or mental states ever, that I would be willing to talk or explore any of these topics with you. Is there no way that I could convince you otherwise? Or is like the mental model that Max has of Steven's mind just complete and unchangeable?
No, if you said that, then I would think that you are less guarded, obviously, that you're willing to explore at least what I think I see in you, but there's still always a thing in all of us that we can never access. I mean, again, that could just be a disagreement about my mental model. But you can see how if that is my mental model, somebody who believes that they know themselves really well, when I don't believe any of us really know ourselves that well, I come across as, I think I know you better than you know yourself. You can't change my mind about anything, all these other criticisms.
Sure, and I agree with that. But I'm always interested in gathering outside perspective on who I am. That's interesting, especially somebody that has a perspective such as your own. You can tell me, but there's not much to work with when you just say like, you're guarded. And I say, how? And you go, well, you just are in ways that you don't even know because of things you're feeling that you don't even know you're feeling. And it's like, well, fuck, there's not really much for me to work with there, I guess. There's no behavior I can change. There's no thought or feeling I can reflect on. There's no amount of introspection I could do because I don't even know what I'm looking for. I guess the issue is just that, like, I feel like if I was to offer a critique to somebody, or I've offered critiques to you, I feel like I can point out a feeling you have, and I can give you an act to work on, and I can give you examples to guide you through that process. So for instance, I might say specifically, I think that you project emotions onto other people. I can give examples. I think that you've done it in your conversations with me and Erudite. I think you've done it in your conversations with Lauren, where you project a thing, I think you trust me, but you're not saying it. Or I think that you are emotionally guarded, but you're not aware of it, right? And then I can give you things to work on. Try following a conversation with somebody where you actually believe what they say and actually believe it, and then just follow that train of thought and see if everything makes sense, or see if something down the road doesn't make sense. And you're like, you said you're really guarded, but like I asked you this question about like, would you be comfortable with us hanging out in real life? And then all of a sudden I was like, I don't know about that one. I'm really nervous about that. And you're like, well, maybe you are guarded. And they'd be like, oh shit, maybe, right? So I could give you, here's the thing you should change. Here are examples of you doing it. And here's like how you can change it. I feel like I could walk you through the whole process. But when I ask you for me, what do you think I'm doing wrong? Or like, what's the examples? It's all very nebulous. Like, well, I think you're guarded.
So
you want
me to be more specific?
Well, yeah, because like if you're going to give me something to introspect on or some challenge of my character, I would be interested. Like, oh yeah, what do you think? Yeah.
Okay, about what? Which thing? I've said a lot of claims. Which do you want me to tell you why I think that?
Well, the guarded thing is the central one. I think that's what you said generally.
I think that you, since we started talking, have been very reluctant to. I think you've run a bit hot and cold. I think that you're unpredictably available.
Okay, am I allowed to talk? Because I can.
Sure. I mean, you
respond
could disagree. I know you're gonna, but
Well, because my question would be, so when you say, like, for instance, like, you're unpredictable, I'm pretty sure every time you've messaged me, I'm willing to chat. And then I'll message you when I see stuff pop up about you, and I'm willing to chat. So I feel like I'm available as I possibly can be.
You said it's not. I'm not saying logistically available, but I mean emotionally. You saying things like, if you never reached out to me, we would probably never talk again. That just seems like an objectively guarded position to take in relationships, of being like, And you said the same thing about Melina. You said, with you and Melina, if you guys didn't talk to me, I would never talk to you again. To me, that paired with a lot of other things you say, like, I'm not a friend person.
Sure. Is it not possible? Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and and I'm understanding if you're building this, like, I think it's adductively, not inductively. I think it's adductively. It might be inductively, but when you start stacking all of these things up, it can point in one direction. And I agree with you, but it also feels like there are lots of stories that these could also fit that wouldn't match what you're saying now. So,
but there's more. There's like, it's like thing after thing after thing after thing after thing.
Yeah. So here, I understand what you're saying, but like, so here's like the issue that we run into is that, like, I'm not trying to impugn you, but I'll bring out, there's an argument called a Gish Gallop. What the Gish Gallop does is I give you 6 bad reasons why an argument is true. And when we go through 1, it doesn't really substantiate the conclusion. If we go through P2, it doesn't really substantiate P3, P4. If we go through all these different premises, they're all wrong, but every time I rebuke 1, you always bring up the other 5.
Yeah, but we're talking about a constellation of behavior and statements. There's no one thing that anybody can do to make me think they're guarded.
Yeah. I agree, but like a constellation, there are many pictures that we could draw out of the stars.
Absolutely. That's why when you asked me, when you said, is there an absolute truth about whether you're a guarded person? No, there isn't. I'm just drawing and this is why I said that empathy is information and statistics about you, just that I've observed, plus imagination. And the imagination is, what picture do I draw in the constellation? What constellation do I see? Well, and so I'm not saying it's objectively true about you, and I don't think we should argue about what it is, whether it is.
Well, when I say there's a fact of the matter, all I'm saying is that, like, there is one story where I actually do avoid people because I'm really guarded, and it makes me uncomfortable that people get too close. And there's another story where I just kind of, quote unquote, avoid people because I actually really love streaming and working, and I'll just, like, sink all my time in it because that's actually super fun.
I know the story you tell yourself, and I know the story you tell out loud. You don't have to fucking recite it. But, like, you're asking me for.
I'm saying
Max,
you're asking me what
would all of the tension go away if he just agreed with you that he probably has, like, a blind spot to, like, how guarded he actually is?
No,
like, would all of the contentions go away if he just agreed?
He's being guarded now. He's asking me, what do you see when you look at me? And I'm saying, okay, let me draw you a constellation. And I get after 3 dots, you yank the paintbrush out of my hand and say, no, what if I draw a different picture? It's like, well, yeah, this is what I'm talking about.
Yeah, sure.
You say you're introspective. You say you're introspective and that you're willing to listen to feedback. But after I talk for like 8 seconds, you have to tell me, well, what if instead of your stupid picture you're drawing, I drew a different fucking picture in which I'm not guarded, bitch?
So
it's like, well, yeah, I know. I've seen that picture already.
Wait, so do you not think that he's open to your criticisms? Because you're saying that he's just rejecting your criticisms. Because it seems like you don't have an issue with him not agreeing with your criticisms.
I don't think that Stephen will allow or is allowing a conversation in which I actually say what I think of him to happen. And he said he wanted me to be more specific. When I started getting more specific, now he's saying that I'm gish galloping and that each individual thing.
Oh my God! Hold on, stop. Okay, stop. Here, if you want, you can lay out the total. I'll give you 3 minutes if you want to lay out the totality of your picture. Go for it.
Okay. So, I don't think it's objectively true that you're guarded. It is a picture that I'm drawing based on my beliefs about what would be good for you, which I think would be for you to get more in touch with your feelings and for you to start trusting people more. Because I think that you are keeping people at arm's length, me and others, and that I think that this is bad for you. I think you should take more risks with people. I think time after time, you say things like, I don't need other people. I don't trust anybody, or I trust everybody, which is the same as me not trusting anybody. You say you'll never reach out to me or your wife or whoever, which I assume this means a lot of people, that you do not reach out when you need emotional support. I don't think you even think of yourself as ever needing emotional support. You say that when you get in a fight with Melina, when you get upset, you leave, you withdraw until you calm down, meaning that the regulation of your emotions and like salve on your wounds emotionally does not come from other people. It comes from getting away from other people. I think that you feel like something bad will happen if you are upset around another person. This is the part of the thing I was talking about with Shaylin. I think watching me interact with Shaylin like that and watching me provoke her and stay in the room while she's provoked is freaky to you. I think that I think you're testing me also. I think you unknowingly will, as you said, I've said some pretty scalding things about Max and he hasn't fucked me over yet. I think that it's not just that you are using this like, oh, I'm an asshole sometimes, and then if people don't betray me, then I know I can trust them. I don't think it's just that you're observing this happening. I think it's actually something that you are doing. I think it's part of how you function, is that I have felt, I didn't understand what was happening at first, but I have felt that you do take kind of like shots at me ever since we started like talking. And the picture it's painting for me is that I feel like you're pushing me away a bit. I feel like I feel like a lot of your orbiters cannot convince you that they actually care about you. And I think that I can convince you of that. And I think that you are kind of freaked out by it. I think you're used to relationship setups that confirm your belief that, yeah, people like you, like a coworker, but essentially they're using you. And I think that when you see signs from me that I actually care more about you than I do about whatever I can get from you in terms of my career, I think that that freaks you out a bit. So that's the picture of Steven's guardedness that is in my mind. And it's not, and like any picture I have of somebody's unconscious behavior, I can't co-author that with them. It's like the same thing I keep saying about trans people. Like you can't tell me how I should see you. I just don't believe in that, like with anything or anyone.
So what do you feel then if Steven wholly rejects that narrative?
I feel unsurprised. I don't know. I feel if he says he wholly rejects it, I guess I don't believe him. I think he probably thinks it's worth thinking about. Probably not true. Kind of interesting. Worth thinking about. I think the part that might be like red hot or radioactive to him is that it might be nice or touching that I am even thinking about it.
Why do you want to convince him that you care?
Because I do.
Why though?
Why should he know that?
Why do you want to? You said I want to convince you that I care.
It's an exclusion of me and my nature from our relationship if he doesn't understand this about me.
But even though he tells you that he does understand it, what if he's just not ready to rely on you because he's so like, guarded and like withholding and untrusting? Like, what if he's just not ready to?
Intellectually knowing that I care and actually feeling that I care, I think are different. Right.
But what if he's not ready to feel it? Like, what if that's just not where he's at?
I think it's likely that he's not. I'm not trying to force him to feel this or know this. I'm just bringing it up because it feels like as the more we talk, the closer we get. And so as our relationship continues, it becomes whatever shots he takes at me hurt more and make me angrier. And then my anger requires more intimacy to process. Like, this is the most intimate conversation we've ever had, I think. then that requires a little more intimacy, and like I can try to like feel my way through that and like kind of set up the scaffolding, but yeah, I think the longer you know somebody and the more you talk to them and the more shit you've been through together, the more your relationship needs to be set up to be able to process like those conflicts. And
what if he doesn't want that? Like, what if he doesn't want what you're prescribing for like levels of intimacy and depth with you?
Then I just think we're gonna have a lot of tension or weird.
So why isn't there
conflict.
space for what Steven wants in this relationship then?
You know what? You tricked me. You have your moderator mask on, but I see the red-faced, bloodshot eyes and tears right behind it. So
answer
you
the
don't. No,
question.
fuck you, lady. You don't get to fucking moderate after your outburst before. Why
No,
don't you
why
take?
is there no
why don't
space
you
for you?
take off
Why is there
that
no
little
space for
mask?
Steven? Okay, I'll
and
let
why
Steven
don't
ask
you just call me a baby and call me names? Then I'll know you're saying what you think.
Okay, so why is there
Why?
no space for
I'm
Steven?
just asking questions with Kyla and Steven, everybody. Why don't you say what you fucking think, since that's all
I
you're
already
doing?
told you what I think. I'm asking
Great.
you questions now.
Okay.
But what's the answer to the question?
What's your question? I don't want to answer your question.
Well, why would you weasel out of the question? Steven, do you want to ask the question?
I had a whole other set of things.
So the question was,
Yeah.
why is there no space for what Steven wants? Like if Steven doesn't want that level of depth, why is there no space for it?
I don't know. I don't know if I agree that there's no. I just don't. Steven wants to be less close. Is that what you're saying? And I'm trying.
So
to force
you
him to
said
be-
you prescribed this thing of like levels of closeness and intimacy, right? You talked about kind of the way that you perceive relationships grow and deepen. Correct?
Yeah, I think that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
And that is a reasonable enough system that you outlined, right?
You think it was reasonable. Do I agree? I agree. You think it was reasonable.
Yeah. So
Yes.
you've outlined kind of the system of intimacy. And so what I'm saying is that sounds like something to some extent ideally you want. Now you're not putting your wants on him. I hear you saying that. You're not saying I have to get this.
Yeah.
But what if Steven is saying I don't want that?
Is Steven saying he doesn't want to be close with me or friends with me? That's fine.
As close as you've prescribed.
Right. You know what? I said this to my father once. I said, we can either be close or you can stop being an asshole. If you're going to say underhanded shit about me and be a fucking asshole, then we're going to have to be close in order to process how angry that makes me. And we're going to need to have space for that. Or we can be nice to each other and not be that close. But we can't really have like a distant, friendly colleague relationship where you take underhanded shots at me or fuck me over in the way that really you should only be fucking over your good friends. So I feel, I guess I would just say like, I'd probably set more boundaries around like what I'm willing to talk about. Like I'd be like, you know, if we're not going to be close, I don't really want to do a stream with you about my intimate relationship. If there's not going to be room for me to be like, you know, I'm mad about the shit you're saying about it, I probably would set more boundaries around that.
Okay. Steven, what do you want from the relationship?
I don't think we have to.
I want everything Max wants. Okay. Just okay.
I'm not trying to ask him what he wants, and I don't.
Yeah, I understand. You're like expressing like what you.
Yeah, I'm just trying to explain. I guess
Sure,
the context for what I'm feeling and what I'm thinking about.
I got you.
I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
If I have a different view of myself, I've collected all the traits that you've gone here. I'll draw them on a map tomorrow, okay? And if I think that all of these traits are explained by other aspects of my character or personality, how do we ever get past that? Because if I say, let's say that I make this statement. Well, this is a true statement. I enjoy talking to you. I like to be as close to you as I could be to any other person that I talk to. That would be fun for me. That's why I talk to you as much as I do. Which I guess might not seem like a lot to you, but given the totality of friendships I have online, it's gone okay so far.
No, it does seem like, I mean, for you, it seems like a lot to me.
Yeah. So if I say that, though, there's always going to be a barrier between us where we have an incongruency about my mind.
Yeah.
How is that? And it feels like I feel like I have a way to resolve that, But it feels like for you, the only resolution is either you kind of like grinning and bearing and say, fine, I'll believe you, even though you really don't, or me saying, okay, Max, I'm going to trust that you know more about me than I do. How do we move past that? How's that
Well,
ever?
I guess I feel the same way I do about like trans people, where I'm like, I don't, just because I don't agree with you about who you are or what you are doesn't mean I hate you, and it doesn't mean I have to hate you. And
It's
it
not
doesn't
about
mean
hating you. I don't want you to. It's not. I don't. Neither of us want our relationship to be us not hating each other, right? That's not.
Yeah, but I guess I'm just saying, like, do you feel like we have to resolve the fact that you see me differently from how I see myself?
I don't know if we do.
I guess I just think.
Or
that
if you think there's some part of you that I see differently than you see, we can talk about that.
well, you think I project a lot, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, I don't think that's true. It's very central to my view of myself that I don't project a lot. It's very important to me that I think that I'm in touch with my feelings. I express my feelings, and I know a lot of what my feelings are, and that minimizes my projection.
Sure.
And
But
that
if
I'm
we
very
wanted to-
empathetic, and so that I
I
actually
understand
see
that.
other. Okay, so
Yeah,
do you
I
think?
understand that.
But do you
But
think
if I
that we
wanted
need to
if I
reconcile?
wanted to, well, no, because I don't think it's that important for me to be close to you, for my mental model to be 100% like your mental model. But for us to be close to each other, it is pretty important that we have a similar understanding of like, can I even be close to people, right? That's kind of central to the question of our closeness. Your mental model of whether you're actually empathetic or whether you project isn't really that important insofar as like having a close relationship, right?
I don't know. I feel like you're saying that it gets in the way of my being able to listen to you or be close to you. If
Sure, or we can still be friends.
If all I
even if
see
feel
is
like-
myself, but I think
Yeah.
I'm seeing you, but I'm just projecting, right?
Sure. But I don't think it like would axe everything. It's not like, oh fuck, we can't even be friends now because of that, right? I don't think so. Maybe
don't
at
thi-
some point, if
I
there
don't
was
think
like,
I don't think me thinking you're guarded axes everything either. For me.
well, but it does if you're trying to get closer to me and you're saying that I have a character defect or a characteristic that essentially prohibits that from ever happening, right?
I don't think I don't think it axes it. I just think it is like a barrier.
So yes, you just restated what I said, but for some reason you don't
Well,
want to.
axing implies that we can't have any relationship. I just think
No,
there's
that's not what I'm saying. Let's be charitable. I'm saying that for us to be really close, this particular character flaw or characteristic of mine would preclude that, right? If I don't
Yeah.
even really know how I feel and I'm guarded, yeah. So if we want to be close, we have to resolve this, right? We can still be friends. I'm not saying we're nothing, but I'm saying we want to be close friends. This would be something that we would have to resolve, right?
yeah.
Yes. Okay. So earlier, when you brought up the thing about your, when I feel like you project, right? So if we don't have to do this now, whatever you want, we don't have to. But like, if I'm saying you're projecting, I would give you a take that I disagree with of yours. I would say, this is what you say, and this is what you say other people would say. And then I would either argue through polling data, through anecdote, or through conversation, this is not true. Therefore, I believe you are projecting, and now you need to give me a satisfactory answer to answer like the arguments that I've put forth. And I feel like I could have that conversation with you. But if we would have a conversation about my guardedness, it feels like there's no way to ever resolve that. That's my issue with your mental models for people. Is there's a fact of the matter about my mind state that can never be resolved.
Okay, so you don't think that you have a disagreement with me, not about individual instances, but literally about how I function psychologically. I think that I make space for other people, and that I'm very empathetic, and that if anything, I am overly empathetic and let other people's an accurate picture of other people's psychological landscapes kind of fill my mind like too much. Your view, I think, is that I am a little unhinged, but in a way that is like interesting or sometimes like adorable, but basically that I go through the world thinking I am seeing other people, but often I'm just seeing my own shadow.
Yeah.
Okay. So I feel like even if I can convince you if I say, I think Reckful is feeling this in this session, and then later he says, I was feeling that. I just didn't realize it 5 minutes ago. And then you're like, oh, I guess Max was right. I don't think that's going to change your view of like how I function.
No, hold on. Over time it would, right? Bayesian. If you were to constantly say things like this, and time again, it seems like a lot of the things you're saying, like, okay, yeah, I guess that person did think that. Or like, okay, yeah, that actually didn't. Then over time, I would start to update where it's like, okay, maybe Max isn't projecting as much as I think he is. Over one time, would I change my view completely? Of course not.
Okay.
But if it happened over and over and over and over again, then over time, I'd be like, okay, I'm going to be more favorable. Like, chances of him projecting are like, they were at 85%. Now they're down to like 75, 60 as time goes on, right?
Right. Okay. So you're asking me if is there a new constellation that could be drawn with more data where I just
The
start
issue
to,
that I have is that conspiracy-wise, or if I were to call you a conspiracy theorist, one of the things that conspiracy theorists do, I'm not trying, I don't want to
that you can draw any line through all
exactly,
of the
right? So like
Right.
the deep state exists, and well, what if I can prove that it doesn't? Well, they control the schools. What if I prove the media
Yes.
doesn't? Well, they
Yeah.
control
I get,
the
I
media.
get
And
what
it's
you're
like, oh,
saying.
well, fuck me. Yeah, yeah,
And
okay.
so you're kind of saying,
Like it feels like I could show you a pattern of behavior where all of a sudden I message you one day and it's like, hey, like there's a girl and I feel this way, blah blah blah, and I thought you'd like to know whatever. It feels like it's possible that you could say like, I think you're only telling me this because you want to convince me that you're being more emotionally available. I don't think you actually even care about my opinion. It feels like you could say that.
right.
And then I'm like, oh well, fuck me. Like there's literally nothing I can say otherwise to convince you.
Yeah, I think that it's an awful proposition that I'm saying I see you, and I see you in a way that you don't see yourself at all, and the only way we can be close friends is if you agree with me.
Yeah, which is kind of where we're at.
It's the only way we can be close friends in my definition of close friends, but I don't think that's the same as your definition of close friends. So it might be that you think we're close, or we are close in one way and just not in this other way.
I guess, but like close friends is kind of a mutual thing. It's kind of weird if one person thinks you're close and the other person
I mean, I guess
doesn't.
I feel like
Right,
someone
right,
with Shaylin, I'm constantly discovering that what she thinks being in a relationship means and what I think it means are not the same. I feel like this is true.
Well, but part of being in a relationship is assuming there's probably going to be some differences. But I'm saying that like if you found out tomorrow that like Shaylin, like you catch Shaylin fucking another person, and she's like, oh, well, I didn't know we were exclusive. Well, now you're like, well, what the fuck? Were you even in a relationship ever at all? Because now like it's dramatically different, right? So there's going to be some boundaries that have to be set that in order for something to be anything. Right? Otherwise,
I think
everything would be everything and nothing would be nothing.
I don't need you to agree with what I think of you. It's more that I need you to be okay, not okay. I need you to know that I think it. To me, like that's the biggest block of intimacy to me. Is when somebody can't stand what I think of them.
So if I said, you know what, Max, I understand that you think I'm super guarded and closed off and will never be open to you. You're like, oh, okay, cool. I'm glad you know that. I don't believe you.
I know, but that's because you're guarded and you think I'm trying to get something. You think I'm trying to get something from you or make you do something. And you every like a conspiracy theorist.
So like
every
so you just
formulation
yeah.
you have of being close with me is going to involve something terrible happening to you. But I don't.
Sure.
I guess I just don't. I don't agree.
So
with
you can say that, which basically your definitions of now, your arguments have become recursive, right? The reason why you say that is because you're guarded, and you're guarded because you're guarded. But I could give you a totally different answer about what your motivations are.
Yeah,
I could say, well, the reason why Max wants me to be more open is because he feels like there's going to be some like personal level inside of me that I don't let people access very often because I don't trust them. And by not giving Max access to that, I either don't trust him or I've got so much repression around trusting other people that I don't trust myself to trust other people. And that's always going to inhibit like our level of closeness. Like, I feel like I can explain your motivations and your feelings pretty well, but your explanation of my feelings is always going to be like, well, you're guarded because you're guarded because you're guarded.
Yours isn't I'm projecting because I'm projecting because I'm projecting?
No, I don't think so. I think if you feel like I didn't explain your emotional state at all there, you can tell me, well, no, you're totally wrong. But I think that if you ask me through any of our interactions to explain,
It's not my
Stephen,
emotional.
like,
You understand my emotional state, but you disagree with me about how I function.
well, that's a separate conversation. I don't necessarily know if this is projection here or not. Like, I think sometimes you project onto people, but I don't.
Well,
think
either
that
I'm
it's-
right or I'm wrong. I mean, or
About what?
or you subscribe to my belief that neither of us. Like again, like I'm not trying to. It's not that I think you are literally objectively guarded. I don't think that exists. It's just a way of.
No, hold on. Well,
it's a
yeah,
way-
we can be more. Neither of us are dumb fucks here, right? You think that I probably subscribe unconsciously to a certain set of maladaptive behaviors that I've accrued over time because it protects me from getting hurt from other people. I'm not like, I'm not going to tell Max this particular thing, but it's more like I might have an uncomfortable thought and I get like a twinge when I think about sharing it with other people because I think that they're going to shoot me down and that's probably going to hurt. So I just avoid bringing it up. But I'm not even.
I don't
really
even think you
about
get
it, right?
to the point of thinking about sharing it. I think.
Yeah,
I think
sure,
it's-
exactly. Yeah, but it's all like these are like a whole bunch of like maladaptive, we'll say subconscious processes.
Yeah, but
that
the
I might not
problem
even be
is-
aware that I went through. Yeah, sure.
The problem is that with the way your life is set up with streaming, I don't think it even is maladaptive now. I think you are correctly adapted to your current environment, but I don't know.
We would say maladaptive because there's probably a world where I can appropriately be guarded in a public setting, but with certain people, such as yourself, I could be unguarded, right?
That would be nice, but it's real. I mean, I don't think this streaming stuff is very good for you. That's my experience of it.
Yeah, generally speaking, for most people, I probably agree. Not for me because I'm so guarded.
Yeah, but you're the exception. Yeah. So, I don't disagree with you that being close with me means that I have to contort and compress you into either being or agreeing with what I see in you. I think
from my perspective, it doesn't, but for your perspective, I think you're always going to feel like there's like aspects of me that you're missing out on or not getting access to because I am consciously or not just kind of like hiding them because I'm a little bit worried about it. And that's going to be something that always, whether you admit it or not, and this will be where I'll make a mind read. And even if you disagree with me, I wouldn't believe you. But I would say that would be a little bit upsetting to you. Not so much so that you wouldn't be my friend, but you'd be like, well, fuck, I wish that like Steven was more open about this particular thing. I think you would have that feeling. Go.
Can I do a mind read here?
Sure.
That you experience that kind of intimacy as like rape, and that you experience even the acknowledgement of a boundary or a guard as me being a vampire, thirsty for your blood, waiting for a drop in the armor or trying to rip it off of you, and that I will just be salivating with like the 1,000-year-old demon hunger, wanting to tear this away from you against your will, and I don't think that's true. I think that's a very guarded way to think of it.
And now I can answer your mind read, and I would say you're wrong.
Yes.
The reason why I would say that you're wrong is I would say that if you ask me any personal thought, I actually really like talking about myself. I don't know if that's a narcissistic trait just because I'm a streamer. I enjoy talking about myself, and I actually like talking about like personal thoughts that I have too. I think I'm a relatively unique person. I think it's kind of be interesting other people hear my thoughts, and sometimes it can be fun to share those thoughts. If you ever wanted to push on a topic, you'd be like, well, what do you think about this? Or what do you think about that? Or whatever. I would entertain almost any conversation you could think of. The only boundaries I typically draw are around like other people's personal stuff because I don't want to bring up other people that aren't there to defend themselves or talk about themselves. But I mean, I feel like I could respond to that pretty adequately. And then if you wanted to like test that, we could engage in certain conversations. This conversation right now is pretty personal. I have no problem talking with you about it publicly. I have no problem expressing like any feelings about it publicly. So I feel like I can illustrate. Okay,
do you think this would be harder for you to talk about privately?
The
chat.
No, I think it would be. I think it would be a little. The chat provides me nothing. I don't ever. I know that. I don't understand. It might be weird to say that, but like I've dated people. I've associated with people that my chat fucking hates. Where it could be you, it could be Brittany.
I think it provides a bit of a buffer, as does Kyla.
Sure, this would be something. This would be something that I would say is a projection because it doesn't. But I understand why you could think it would. It might for you, and you might think it does for other people. But
have you guys ever talked privately off stream?
I think twice.
That's correct.
Were those conversations less warm, or what was your experience of them, Max?
I think they were pretty similar to this. This is actually probably more intimate than any of those conversations. I think those were like business related.
Sort of.
What more are you wanting from him? Would you like to see?
Well, I think the problem is he wants something that I don't agree exists, that he think exists, that I can't, like, he can't give words to it.
But he doesn't want it, but he does want it. Like, that's the issue.
I don't think it's a problem.
But I'm not saying, hold on, to be clear, when I'm saying it's a problem, again, I'll repeat this. I'm not saying that it's like prohibitive for us to ever talk to each other. This has to be resolved. But I'm saying there's always going to be like a feeling of disappointment in you that you think that there's some part of me that you're not getting access to. Do you think that's a fair summary? If I ever say something about your emotional state that you disagree with, you can always correct me. But that's a feeling that I have.
I still love you, even if you disappoint me.
That's not what we're talking about, right? A mother can still love a child. They're a murderer, but they prefer for them not to murder.
But I'm saying it's okay for me to be disappointed.
I don't disagree with you.
Well, so then, I guess it seems like the way
ideally in any relationship, we would want to like curtail the amount of disappointments, right? Like it's okay that I disappoint my wife.
I guess I'm saying I'm trying to say that I don't think we need to do that. I think that
Wait, then why are we talking about this at all if you have no desire to see me change?
Because I wanted to express it and talk about it. And like, yeah, I would like you to think about it, and I would like to think about it too. Yeah, sure, it's possible.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying
I'll see more data points,
the...
and then I'll start thinking of you just as an introvert rather than a guarded person.
Sure, and I'm not trying to make the strong claim that like you're trying to change me or else you view it as a failure or anything like that. I'm not trying to say that. I'm just saying that you probably prefer if I could be a little bit less guarded or more open. I don't think that's that ridiculous to say. I think that's pretty accurate.
Obviously true, but I feel like that there's an implication that I can't be disappointed.
Sure, and neither of us agree that you would feel that way, right? Or I would tell you, maybe you wouldn't agree with me.
Yeah, but I feel like, and this goes back to the Shaylin thing, where I think that might make you feel like you need to fix it if I'm disappointed, or that not that you need to, but you either need to fix it or leave.
Well, think about me and what you know of me so far, just how I talk. Do I come across as the type of person that feels like I either have to people please or have to run from people because I don't 100% line up with their expectations of me? That doesn't sound like a very me thing, I don't think, right?
On the outside, that's not a you thing, but you could also see how that could be a developed way to protect yourself from feeling very much like that on the inside.
It could be, but now you're making assumptions.
Big read. It's a big mind read.
Well, but it's a mind read based on, but it's based on no data, right?
It's based on your stories. It's based on your stories about Melina and your interactions with me.
My stories with Melina. What do you mean by that?
That you, when there is conflict, when she gets really upset with you and you get upset, you either say something conciliatory to fix it and tamp down your feelings, or you leave until you are calmer. And then come back.
But like, okay, I think there's, for an alternate read, well, real quick, people can have different ways of resolving problems, right? I'm not running from these. I'm just like, when I get heated in the moment, I'm not in a good state to resolve issues. But I'm not like running from the feelings. I just need a moment to like cool off. I don't think that's like...
there's a implication that it has to be resolved.
That what has to be resolved?
The conflict or the feelings.
Well, for a relationship, I would imagine, like a marriage, right? We can't just walk around with unresolved tension all the time. It'd probably not be healthy.
Don't see and I think that's what I'm saying. I think that's a kind of guarded view, is that I think it's inevitable that you're going to walk around with unresolved tension all the time. I don't think there's a way to escape that. And I think it's also true of a friendship. Why
do you think that?
Because you can't fix everything.
Well, I
don't even know if you can fix anything.
But that doesn't mean that you always have to be in tension with every interpersonal relationship.
I think it does. This is why when people are like, "Oh my God, you have to break up with Shaylin," blah blah. I'm like, Jesus Christ, this is.
You think that's just because of your experiences, though? Like you've had a lot of contentious relationships.
Do you think that maybe you're a moron who's projecting? No, I don't think that, Kyla. You think that. I don't think
so
that.
I guess I'm giving you kind of that mind read feedback that I think I'm right. I'm pretty sure you're just projecting your negative interpersonal relationships. And I'd like you to consider it because I think you're wrong.
Well, and I would like you to consider that you're wrong, that I'm wrong. But in my view, it's inevitable that we will have unresolved tension in relationships and friendships and marriages. And so what I'm saying is, what I was saying before, that I think you have a pretty guarded view where if somebody's disappointed in you or upset, particularly a woman or me, that you want to either fix it by saying something conciliatory while biting your tongue, or leave until you are calm enough to come back and fix it by saying something conciliatory and not biting your tongue. And I feel like that informs what you're saying about me being disappointed in you, where you feel like you don't want to just sit with that. Maybe I am disappointed, but maybe that's okay.
Do you think objectively all interpersonal relationships are in a state of tension and like frustration and resentment? Like all human interpersonal relationships?
Yes.
Okay. And is there anything that people could supply as evidence to counter your belief in that?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I guess like if you could convince me that I'm like mentally ill, I guess, and then I would be like, well, I guess because you're asking me like, is there anything I can show you to convince you that everything you see is not real? And it's like, I guess like you could probably convince me that I have a serious mental illness, but
like a blind spot, right?
It would be like more than that, Because this
It
is
would be
just
a really big blind spot, but it'd be
Yeah.
a blind spot, like a huge one.
it's unlikely that you can convince me of that. Yeah.
Right. But what if you're wrong?
Then I am a bad person because I'm convincing other people to see something that's not even there.
Okay, so one thing I don't know how to move you off of this. I wish I could move you off of this, okay? I'm not trying to pressure you or say that I feel pressured that we have to resolve something. You have very much fixated this idea in your mind that I am almost like stressed out right now because I feel like we have to resolve our tension. We have to resolve our... That's not what I'm saying.
I know.
I've ever
You're
said
saying
here-
it precludes a certain amount
yeah,
of
being like
closeness.
really close, and that it would be like you would be a lot happier if like this was a particular thing that I did have a better handle on. You'd be happier.
I'm saying that
That's an easy yes. Come on, you'd be happier if I was like less guarded
there's an
around you. and you had-
implication that closeness with you and the importance of our relationship to me is predicated on you making me happy or you not disappointing me, and that's not true.
I don't like the phrasing of making me happy because that's so vague that it's
There's
it
just
could
there's a
be always true or always...
transactionality. There's a transactionality to the way you are framing our friendship as like I have to get good feelings out of it for it to make sense that I want to be close to you.
Sure.
But that's not what I
But
want.
but that is what you want. If we're gonna
It's
talk about
not.
transactions,
But it's not. I'm telling you, it's not.
would you want to have a friendship with somebody who the majority of the feelings they gave you were bad feelings?
Yes.
How? Why? How? You can't say yes to this.
I think that's what love is.
Okay.
Wow, double forehead palm. Dang.
Well, it's just like it's such a vacuous statement that it's obviously not true in its face, because the way that this conversation is going to work if we go down it is you're going to define happiness and sadness in ways that I'm not, or you're going to define love in a way that I'm not, and then
Yes,
eventually we're
I'm
gonna
defining
end up
love in a
with
way
agree.
that you don't. I think
Yeah.
that if
So my question is, can you give me an example?
Why don't you
what's
go
an
into
example of, like-
Steven's bubble and answer the way that he means love?
or actually, I'm just curious. Like, can you give me an example of a relationship that the majority of the feelings are negative, but you're happy with that relationship?
Shaylin.
Okay, why would you be with somebody if the majority of the feelings are negative?
Because I'm not with her to make myself happy.
Why are you
That's not-
with her?
I mean, life is mostly negative feelings. It's like
Why-
asking
okay,
why
no,
I don't
wait,
kill
wait,
myself.
wait.
Why am I with Shaylin? Because I love her.
Yeah.
I want to be with her. That is the intimacy.
Okay, what does it
and
mean what does it mean when you love somebody? What does that mean to you?
I have a strong. I mean, I don't want to limit it by defining it, but I'll say that part of it is I just feel a strong pull to be with her. That is
Okay, and if
independent.
you had to
that is
describe-
independent of what she does for me or how she makes me feel. It's independent
So-
of those things.
Why do you love her and not every other person?
I don't know. I mean, I can
never
enumerate her.
reflected on that
I would if I knew she was never going to hear this, I could enumerate some of her qualities that I like, but that would be complimenting her, and I don't want to do
Sure.
that.
Those
So she has-
qualities are things that affect your, starts with the letter F, E, E, L, I, N, G. They affect your feelings. That's how you feel about her.
At first, that's true. That's what attracted me to her. But
Sure.
now my attachment to her and love for her is pretty independent of what she does for me. She can make me feel nothing good for like weeks, and I'll still love her
Sure.
just as much
But
as
what if
much
it
as
was-
I did.
What if it was the case that it happened for months or years? What if she changed completely, her personality and everything? She would almost become a different person. Would you still feel love for her?
Stop doing art.
Yeah. I would still feel love. I mean, like that happened with my ex-wife. We got divorced. We
Okay,
had
what would happen if
irreconcilable
somebody-
differences,
Sure.
but I didn't stop loving her because we got divorced. I didn't stop loving her probably for a few years after we got divorced.
Okay, if somebody moved into your house and called themselves Shaylin, and then she moved out, would you love that person that called themselves Shaylin? They even get the name change and everything.
Yes. No, I wouldn't. I'm attached
Okay.
to her specifically, not just her name.
Okay, but then why her? There has to be because of a way she
the-
makes you
but do-
feel.
I know
Unless you
that you-
literally
I
are going to
know-
give me... Yeah.
Can
Go
I
ahead.
can I take you back to my bubble for a second?
Let's go.
You have a view of relationships where people don't love you; they only love what you can do for them. I think
Correct.
I think that's guarded and kind of fucked up. And what I've been
Sure.
trying to explain to you
Mhm.
is that my affection for you and my attachment to you as a friend is not connected to what you do for me.
Gotcha. And what I would say is whatever you're describing in my worldview, now I wouldn't accuse you of this because I'm okay with you viewing things differently. Actually, I don't actually believe what you're saying, but that's a different topic, okay? I would say that
well,
your
that's what
view,
I'm saying. I'm saying you don't
sure,
believe
that's fine,
it.
that's
I know
fine.
you don't
But I would say
believe
that your view is obsessive and insulting. Why would I want to be with somebody that doesn't care about me for any of my characteristics, for any of the things that I've worked for any of the happy moments or joyful moments or anything that I can provide for them, but instead they just have this weird, unhealthy, ethereal attachment to me for no reason. I don't believe relationships work that way. I think that we love the people that we love because of the way that they make us feel and the things that we do with them. That's where those types of feelings come
Yeah,
from.
and I think that you have not felt a lot of like love and acceptance in your life.
And you can say that, but you would
Yes.
utter that statement with no justification. But I could walk you through logic trees for everything I'm saying, and you more or less have already agreed with them that you love Shaylin because of the things that she's made you feel, which come after the actions that she's
But do you see
performed.
how it fits right into my guarded Stephen is guarded narrative?
Yeah,
if
it
you're
fits
telling,
into
if you're
your
telling
thing
me
because-
if you're telling me that loving you or loving Shaylin or loving people
Mm-hmm.
independent of what they can do for me is a unhealthy fixation.
No, I understand, but it will only loop in a very recursive and unsatisfying way. But I think I can, like, through different logic paths, through different syllogism, I could prove everything I'm saying about your view in a way that you would satisfyingly be forced to agree with every single deductive line of truth about you. You would be. We could do it if you want. But like because you're telling me, because the very simple few questions I have to ask is, why do you love Shaylin instead of somebody else? You're going to differentiate her, and those differentiations
Because
are
we've built a
things
relationship together.
that- No,
that's why.
stop. But yeah, but that
No,
I'm
that's
gonna ask you-
actually why. Because
Why were you drawn
I'm
to her
gonna ask-
originally?
I'm going to ask you why you built it with her, not with anyone else. And at some point, and you can say, well, because we did this. At some point, you're going to have to give me some
you
set
true?
of actions or characteristics
Look,
she had that make you feel a certain way.
Shaylin is not the number one best partner for me that I could ever
Never
have.
said she was. Super huge straw man. I don't believe in soulmates.
I'm not saying it. I'm not saying you do. I'm saying let's acknowledge this. Shaylin is not the perfect partner for me. If I were to meet the perfect partner for me tomorrow, I would not leave Shaylin for that person.
Of course you
even if-
wouldn't. Absolutely not. Of course not.
Right. So you're identifying love as a responsibility, right? That's one piece.
No.
of it.
No, I
But
wouldn't even want
in
to.
In your framework, you might. But all I would say is part of the characteristics that we have with other people is time spent together. And even if you meet a partner that is better matched for you in every way than Shaylin is, there's going to be some risk in taking on that relationship, and they're not going to have the same historical background that you have with Shaylin. So it's going to be a fundamentally different person.
Okay, but do you see how I would not frame that as just time spent together? I would frame that as like the bond.
Yeah, you would have another framing, but then you and I would argue it out, and by the end of it, you would agree with everything I'm saying, just in different words.
Well, let's argue it out. I'm saying
Sure.
that it's. I'm
You're
saying
saying that
it's
it's
not
about
just.
the
I'm not saying it's not.
bond that you've built with her, and I'm going to ask, why have you built a bond with her? She's not your child, and you weren't force wed, so why did you choose to build a bond with her?
There were things I liked about her at first, and there were things I did like that she did for me at first. It is more
Okay.
transactional in the beginning of a relationship or a friendship.
Sure.
Just as with you, I mean, you gave me a fucking career. Like, there's nothing more transactional than that.
Sure. So then there are characteristics that you're attracted to with her, and you've built a relationship off of those initial things because of how she made you feel. Yeah.
Yes. But now,
So
but now,
yeah, that's yeah.
but now it doesn't. Now I'm saying that I am at a point with her and with you where you guys can both make me feel quite bad, and I will still love you.
Sure. And I guess at some point, I would argue that in your mind, you attach an unhealthy amount of value to time spent together. But at some
Yes.
point, I don't believe, I think that even you, if you were with somebody that 180, that genuinely started to treat you like shit for months and months and months and years, at some point you would be like, well, fuck, like this isn't the same person that I loved anymore. Like this ain't it.
Yeah, maybe, but I think before I got to that point, I would just set boundaries. I would say like I can't participate in certain
Sure, and you would set
conversations or in certain
boundaries,
ways,
yeah.
and I do set boundaries with Shaylin,
And you would set boundaries because you're trying to protect your feelings. You want them to make you feel a certain way. You want to limit the bad and still partake in the good, right?
Yes, and I will
Yeah.
set boundaries with you as well, but that doesn't
Sure.
mean that doesn't mean that again. It doesn't mean that my affection for you or for our relationship is because you make me feel good or
It
because
literally is conditional on good feelings. The whole point of a boundary is you set a boundary with somebody instead of cutting them off completely because you get something good from them, but you want to limit something bad from them. That's what a boundary is. A boundary is a semi-permeable barrier that lets the good in, but blocks the bad from coming in.
there's tons of things that you do and are doing right now that make me feel very bad that I'm not setting a boundary about.
That's just because you're bad at setting boundaries then. But it also,
Or maybe it's because I love and accept you more and have more tolerance for your the parts of you that will make me feel bad than you expect.
But understand your perspective on relationships. It's wholly and unquestionably transactional, or like to what degree?
Okay,
I'm
should
sure
have
you don't.
never, ever, ever uttered this fucking word because people take this and they mean the worst possible things with it. Okay?
I am
When
being
I- when
actually
I-
very
when I
charitable,
say-
but I want to ask.
Sure. When I say things are transactional, I include a lot of things in that transaction. Part of that transaction is a person like making you feel a certain way. When people hear me say transactional, they think like your wife has to give you a certain number of blowjobs or gifts or cook enough breakfast for you. But when I think of transactional, what I think of is that like if I have a private call with a friend, like part of the transaction of us communicating with each other is that they enjoy my company. I would hope they do. And I enjoy their company. Like we're transacting. In some ways, I'm providing some positive utility to their life. They're providing some positive utility to my life. Now, these are calculations that can run in medium and longer terms. It doesn't mean, so some people might naively say, oh, well, if you think it's transactional, then as soon as somebody's mean to you, you'll cut them off. Well, that's not true. There are plenty of people that you can have a bad experience with that overall provide you a lot of like good. This could be wives, it could be children, it could be husbands, it could be friends. Like, you know, it's not always 100% good, but over like periods of time, you do these calculations. And if they do turn bad, that's generally when we say like, this is a negative relationship, you should try to escape it, right?
Right. In like relation and talk, we would call that like there's always going to be a natural level of like tit for tat or like.
Yeah, and I understand the verbiage you're using, but I would be very careful in saying it for the same reason therapists would say you should be careful, is because when you get into keeping track of a tit for tat system, things can get very toxic very quick. But on the flip side of that, you should be running, and I would absolutely say this, you should have some mental gauge of a tit for tat, because it is possible that you can become so selfish in a relationship you're losing track of things. So for instance, I'm not thinking of every single time Melina like cooks me breakfast or cleans the house or does something, but if she's doing a lot of things and I'm not doing anything, whether we think tit for tat is toxic or not, at some point resentment is going to build in the difference between our contribution to chores in the relationship, right?
Right. And like I think one piece that's also in that you're kind of talking about is like over time, like the level of like exchange is different, right? Like when you've just met somebody, there's a little bit of like give and take of like, obviously if you're with them, some of the give might just be, it's nice, it's fun, right? But as your relationship deepens, there's going to be a little bit more that's expected for being given, but also you're also expected to give more. And then the trade-off isn't going to be just like, oh, well, you're not giving to me anymore for like 2 weeks. So fuck you. Like that's obviously not what it would be. Because if you've had 2 years, like people go through stuff, right? You've like built up that like,
one partner might be going
social
through
currency,
school,
essentially.
one partner might get depression, one partner might have a phase. Yeah, there are things that can happen, of course.
But if this if maintains over time for like 7 years, where like there isn't a lot of give and take, people don't broadly enjoy being around each other. They're not really like loving on one another too much. Reality is like that relationship is inevitably doomed to fail.
I would say, but so this is where I would push back on. I know you're here. I'm not trying to talk about you when you're not here. But this is why I would push back on views like Max's, because I would say views like this are how people wind up in toxic relationships for long periods of time.
I would agree.
Is that they think that like, yeah, like, fuck, I made a commitment. I can never get out of this. I got to do this. Like, well, no, hold on. Like, there are points in your life where you can step back and evaluate. Do I feel like this is something that isn't benefiting me in the long run? And I feel like people are even scared of using that type of language because they feel selfish. But you should be selfish. It's your life. It's your relationships. It's ultimately your happiness. Unless you've made a commitment otherwise that you feel like you're committed to. So like either having a child, or say you get married to somebody and they have like a degenerative disease and you feel a commitment there, right? At those levels, I can understand you might feel like you have a compulsion to follow some level of commitment. But if you're in a relationship that's just making you like sad and miserable all the time, I don't think you should feel a compulsion to stay there. I would argue that that's unhealthy. Yeah.
Right. These are like the non-negotiables. Like this is what I would communicate to people. It's like you have to figure out what your non-negotiables are. And if they appear in your relationship, you have to address them and draw a line and make it clear that it's a non-negotiable. And then they get to choose if that works for them. Right. But you have to have non-negotiables because like things can't just work forever and just like grin and bear, resent each other and like hate each other. live two
Well, they
separate
can,
lives.
but those relationships suck. And then
Exactly,
when somebody dies,
exactly.
they're like, fuck me, I'm 65. Or those are the people who are like, and everybody's on, I've done this, where people stay in a bad relationship for way too long. And then by the end of it, they're like, fuck, like I'm 34 now. I should have dumped this guy when I was like 26. Like, why did I waste 10 years here? Like this happens to people, right? Yeah. And it's, but, okay. Hi, Maxwell.
Hey.
Your name is actually Max, isn't it? It's not Maxwell, right? I feel like Max is a weird name, but okay. Or it's
Just
always
3
like Max
letters
and-
on your
Just
whole
3
birth
letters.
certificate. Wow. Nice.
Yeah, very concise. Yeah, I asked you about transactionality in our like second or third conversation. I pointed out that I get money every time I talk to you, and you said you don't think about it. You said you never think about that, and to that meant
Sure. Okay, wait. So sometimes we speak some things for shorthand. So let me elucidate. Let me expand on that, right? When I say I don't think about that, I don't mean that I'm so naive and stupid that it doesn't even cross my mind. When I say I don't think about it, what I mean is that like this isn't a thought that would influence an action I have.
I know.
That's what I mean. Okay, cool. Just making sure we know that, right? Because I don't want you to. Like,
Yeah,
oh, so
I
you're
know.
saying
I
you've
know
never
that you're
been
aware of
factual.
it, but
Yeah,
you're
of
saying
course,
you don't
obviously.
think about it. But what that meant to me is that you were always thinking about it.
Well, I mean, yeah, I'm always thinking about a lot of things, right?
But this is one of them, and this adds to my view of you as seeing relationships as transactional.
Okay.
And
If
and now you're saying I'm mentally. You're implying I'm like mentally ill or unhinged if I love someone despite them making me feel mostly bad feelings. But I think that you have like a immature.
We both
view
disagree
of what
with each other's approach
relationships
to
are.
relationships. That's fine. I'm okay with that. I think yours is bad. You probably think mine is bad.
I think yours is worse.
Yeah, of course you do, which I would expect, because why would you think mine is better but still have yours and defend yours? Obviously.
Right.
Yeah. So my question would be though, and this is where I ask for, I don't know if it's respect of my character or just like like your assessment of my character. Like there are a lot of things that I keep in mind for our conversations. Do you think I would talk to you if I thought that your primary goal for talking to me was just to make money off of me? Like how much would that influence my actions in associating with you?
I mean, that was my primary goal the first time we talked. Obviously,
What's
any small, tiny creator who's like, "Can I talk to you on your huge platform?" Their primary goal is professional. And I'm sure.
Sure, but do you think that I think that if I did think that your only reason for talking to me now was to just like enrich yourself off of me, do you think that I would continue to engage with you in the way that I do?
You talk to some people who I think you must think. I think their only goal is to enrich themselves, and you still talk to them. So I don't know, but I probably not me. No, I think if I did,
sure.
if
That's
I
cool.
if I were doing that, probably not. No.
Okay, yeah. So then, who cares? Or why let the subtext, right? Like imagine in your world, or fuck, I already know what you're gonna say. You're gonna say, oh well, I would think of this. In your world, every single pretty girl would always think that every guy she was talking to never wanted to be friends with her ever. They all just wanted to fuck her, and so she could never even truly have a friendship with a guy because she'd be worried every single guy only wants that.
Shave your head.
Listen, have you seen Sigourney Weaver? Aliens.
have.
Alien 3. Have you seen
I've seen Alien 3.
the one girl in V for Vendetta? What was her name?
Natalie Portman.
Nicole or Natalie Portman? Yeah. So girls be hot with
I've seen it all. I've thought about licking those scalps. I guess.
I don't mind you having those thoughts. I think it's good to have them. I think if you don't, you become naive, and then you blind yourself to ways you could potentially get super fucked over. Just don't let I would say don't let those thoughts like dominate and take over, or otherwise ruin. Because now I would argue that in a weird way, you're kind of being the guarded one by having that thought in your head. It might be the case. So here are some facts that I'll say. Anytime you message me, and this has been the case, I will always talk to you. You or Erudite. I think you're both interesting people. Anytime you message me. I think in my head, right? I think in my head, I think that you probably would talk to me more, but you're worried about how it would come off, or you would pursue a conversation more. But when I say things like, oh, okay, well, anything else? In your mind, you're thinking like, fuck, he wants me to leave. So I think that you've actually been guarded in a way that has precluded future conversations where I would have gladly had the conversations, but you're so worried about coming off a certain way, you're thinking about certain things that it's prohibiting you from engaging.
It's not just about coming off a certain way; it's about actually hurting you.
Sure, but I'm telling you that I don't think that would happen. But if somebody came to you, if a third party came to you and they were like, this girl says that she doesn't mind if I do a certain thing, but I'm so worried that if I do a certain thing, it's like it's going to come off a certain way, and like I'm not even talking to her now. Like, what would you tell that person? That they're being guarded, or, well, that's an okay thought to have?
I think it just depends on how she said it. I mean, like, again, you saw me with Shaylin in the doll conversation. She said yes, but I didn't believe her. And so you're saying yes, but I feel like this is part of my inner conflict with you, is I feel like every time I feel like if I reach out to you, if it seems like I think you feel a little put upon. Not professionally.
Do you really though? Do I really feel that way? Do you really think I feel that way?
I really think that you feel a bit put upon whenever anybody messages you about anything for any reason. Yes. People ask me to ask you for favors all the time. They're like, see if Destiny will connect you with blah blah blah.
Yep. Because you know what? Because you're right. You're not autistic. You are correct. That is a true read. There are sometimes like, I don't know if I want to take this person, blah 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 blah. But like, for me, and this is where I like my mental models of other people is so important for me, is I try to judge them by actions. Like, I might think you believe a certain thing, but like, what do you actually do? That's how I update my priors, right? In terms of how I feel about a person. When you reached out to me, every single time, I think I've been ultra receptive. And I think it might actually be the case at this point that I think I might have reached out to you more for conversations than you've reached out to me. I think we might actually be at that point, because there have been at least 2 or 3 videos you've done where I'm like, do you want to come on and chat about this? So you have a mental idea of how I feel about you approaching me. But if you look at my actions in reality, they're totally incongruent.
But
unless you want to do like some
think
mind prison stuff where you're like, yeah, go ahead.
You should give me a little credit here, where it might also be that I've earned that by being thoughtful.
Well, hold on. I would say that, though. You're speaking for me. I don't know if you actually believe that. I don't know if you think you have earned that, because I think you're still worried about it. I do think you have. That's why if you message me for a conversation, I'll probably always chat with you. Yeah, whatever the fuck random shit you message me, like, okay, yeah, let's hop on and chat or whatever. Or we can chat offline. I do believe that. Now, you just stated that, which is really interesting, because it feels like you were trying to give me a logical answer to why a thing might be the way that it is, but it doesn't feel like, now I'm making a mind read here, so you can tell me if I'm totally off, but it doesn't feel like you actually believe that. It doesn't feel like you think, like, if you, in your deepest feelings, do you feel like, have I earned the right to like message this guy whenever I want and he like always just talks to me and it's chill? I don't feel like you feel that way.
I don't think I've earned a right to message you whenever I want. I think I've earned a sense from you that I am being thoughtful when I message you. I think that by being thoughtful when I message you, if you get a message from me, you assume that it's probably for a good reason, and that.
Yeah, but that sounds even more guarded. Now it sounds like you're using like that or what I've said, you're using like this hyper transactional lens of like, I can only message him when I feel like I'm going to provide like an interesting enough conversation for it to be worthwhile. Doesn't that seem a little guarded, or does it feel a little guarded?
Yeah, it might be. I experience it as being, especially now that it's happening to me. I have people being like, you know, oh, you should talk to this person. And then I'll look at that and I'm like, oh, this person's just your friend. I'm like, I can't trust anything anybody says to me anymore. I have no idea who is my friend or who is using me or blah blah. It's weird, and you never know why anybody is trying to talk to you, and you're, you know, 50 times bigger, so, or more, 100 times, 1,000 times, so, yeah, and then that combined with my sense that you have this like kind of heartbreakingly pessimistic transactional view of relationships, yeah, it does make me want to be careful. And yeah, part of that is selfish, I guess. And is me being guarded, because I can't stand the idea of I don't like making you feel violated, which I feel like you feel whenever anybody says they want something from you, and then also used or professionally.
Sure. So everything you're saying is true and valid, not in just the sense that like, oh, your feelings are valid, but then like I think your rationale is pretty sound. I'm not even going to fight you on any of it.
Okay.
But like to back up for a little bit and having like kind of a meta conversation. So the initial reason why I think you and most people, almost all people, don't like it when people are guarded is because there might be fruitful interactions that you could have, but a person's like own barriers are preventing it from happening. And you see where I'm going, right? Now I'm going to say I think it's interesting because it feels like, remember I said this idea that I feel like you project onto other people sometimes? I feel like what you just laid out is a really good justification for why you're guarded around me. Because there are other conversations that it feels like we could have either pursued further or had, but we hadn't because you're really worried about the way that I view the world and how it'll come out.
Yeah.
And now so it feels like the guarded thing is there on your end, and that was maybe a little bit projected onto me is kind of what it feels like. But I could be wrong.
Or I'm right, but we're both right, and it's just like a mess. But
Sure.
or
But
it's
my-
just
or my
complicated,
form
not
of-
a mess,
my
but just
form of-
complicated.
Sure. But I will say, not to be too argumentative, but like your form of being correct is that I'm either engaging in a ton of self-deception and I'm always guarded about being guarded. But I feel like for your level of being guarded, I feel like we've had a good conversation. We've logically laid out the points to where you feel guarded.
Wait, is his
Like-
internet?
Your internet's
You're frozen.
popping up.
Oh, there we go.
You're back.
Wait,
Kind
am
of.
I okay? Yeah, okay. I feel like all of the arguments that I've laid out from start to finish are like pretty reasonable, that like you feel a certain way because of things that I've said, things that you've said, and then ways that you feel about the world and view the world. And then that's led you to not taking actions. And none of this is mysterious, right? You have access to all of these thoughts. I only know them, not because I read your mind, but because you're telling them. You're sharing these thoughts with me.
I guess.
And
I
feel
think
like
the thing you're pointing out that I'm also protecting myself, and I think you're also telling me that at a certain point, as we become better friends, it becomes a block to our friendship if I'm too careful with you.
Yeah, exactly. But I just think there's a tinge of like meta irony that it feels like, and this isn't supposed to be like a gotcha, or I'm like trying to mind.
No, I
focus
think
on
you're
it, but,
right.
like,
I don't think it-
Yeah,
I
it
don't-
feels
I
like
don't
at the
think
end
it's
of the day, the guarded person here is probably you. It feels like it a little bit.
Well, I think that last part isn't true, but I think that I don't think
but-
think it's mutually exclusive. But I agree with
Yeah,
you.
it doesn't have
that-
to be mutually exclusive, but I won't let you get away from that. You are guarded because there are things that you could have done where we could have had more interactions, but you didn't because you were worried about how I would respond to them. That's the definition of guarded, right?
That's true, and then I think there's another part about not. I don't always want to be the person who reaches out.
Sure. Although I think I've, at least recently, for sure recently, I think
yes,
I'm almost always
recently.
the one that reaches out. Yeah, so
That's true. So yeah, I agree with you that I'm guarded, and I think it's good feedback. I think you're right.
Okay, I love you.
I think there is
wanna-
something self-protective in my the whole way I'm framing this,
Maybe a little bit, sure.
but it's easy. It's easier for me to acknowledge the ways in which I'm trying to protect you than myself. That's true.
Sure, because I think that I'm curious, what does projection mean to you? Give me your explanation of projection, and then I'll tell you what I think projection is.
I think projection is when you either think somebody else is feeling something you're secretly feeling, or you think they're feeling or doing something that you have a distorted view of it to make it fit what you're secretly feeling, secret from yourself,
Secret from yourself.
unconsciously feeling.
Okay, gotcha. You might agree with this. So I would phrase this a little bit differently, right? Let's say somebody were to go online, okay? And let's say somebody posts a picture of them hugging like a girl, hugging like their daughter, okay? And it's like a 9-year-old. And let's say you tweeted out like, I saw the way that you were touching her side, and I know that like when you squeeze your fingers there, you're just thinking of her soft and supple flesh. I know you're doing that. When you would like read a sentence like that, what you're thinking is like, that sounds like some projection.
That sounds like projection.
But
yeah.
why? Why is it projection? And I think the reason why it's projection is because it feels like that person isn't like consciously trying to fuck somebody else over. They're not like trying to do some weird mind games. I think that what it is when there are things about ourselves that we're intimately familiar with, we tend to see those sometimes incorrectly in other people. And I think that's what projection is. I think projection is that I see you do a behavior. I do a similar behavior, but I'm going to ascribe all of my motivations for that behavior to you because I'm seeing that thing that I know exists in myself. So when I would talk about projection, I don't think I would say necessarily anything subconscious or unknowable or unknown. I would just say that like he's doing a behavior and I do a behavior that's kind of like that. Now I'm going to take all of my motivations and all of my reasons for doing that, and I'm going to say that he has all of those things too. So I think that what that can lead to is like, you might see me not talk to people much, and you personally might not talk to people much. And when you see me not talk to people much, you're like, oh, he's not doing that. I don't do that. And here are all the reasons that I do that. And I'm going to tack that on to him. And then I think that's what I would define as projection. I think that's where most projection comes from.
I think that makes sense. I think the only thing I'd add is that I think empathy is kind of like projection, except accurate, where you're saying, if I were doing that, this is how I'd be feeling, but you're actually right. And I think projection is definitionally like you're not right.
Potentially.
Like if you tell me I'm projecting it, you're not saying I'm accurately projecting. You're saying I'm putting something on you that doesn't fit.
Yeah, I think generally when we say you're projecting, so for instance, like if somebody's stomach is growling and I'm like, oh, I bet you're hungry. Like technically that's projecting, but nobody would really say that because like it's probably true, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's generally true. I think we say somebody's projecting, they're wrong. So here's something that I'll ask you about, and I'm never trying to make you change your definitions. I'm just curious because we seem to define some of these differently. Can you define for me again, what do you mean when you say empathy?
The ability to understand and know the feelings of another.
Gotcha. So earlier, and especially if you're doing like psychoanalytic things, and I could be wrong because I know fuck all about philosophy, or I'm sorry, psychology. I think that psychoanalysis and Freudian stuff, psychodynamic stuff, I think isn't the general theory or model of mind that there is subconscious stuff that you have that you might not have direct access through, but through conversation, I can kind of start to pull that out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So because I'm a dumb fuck or whatever, I don't like that model of the mind. When I feel like people are being empathetic, my definition of empathy is just that, like, if you have a certain feeling, I know why you're feeling it. I can intellectualize it at least, if not emotionally understand it. So, like, I would consider empathy to be like, Max is upset over something. Well, why is Max mad? Max is mad because he's a fucking moron. Well, that's not very empathetic. That doesn't mean anything, right? But if I can say, well, Max is upset because I said this and that, and these things make him feel this way, so now he's upset because I've said these things, I would consider that to be somebody that is like, oh, you're pretty empathetic. You have an understanding of their feelings. The only reason why I prefer I prefer all my definitions to yours because we obviously prefer our definitions to each other. But I feel like it's weird if you're being empathetic is good because I think that understanding people's feelings are good. But if we define empathy as like reading somebody's subconscious, I think that gets a little scary because now we all want to be good. In our minds, we write narratives that we're good always, unless we're like sociopaths or ASPD or whatever, right? But if your mental model of you being good requires you to be making like really big psychological reads of people's mind states that they might not even know because it's subconscious, I think that gets into scary states. Because you might make an incorrect read and be stuck there, or very hard to move you off of it, and then you start to fit their behaviors to that mental read that may or may not be true. And then I think sometimes it can preclude you from seeing somebody's actual emotional state, which would give you greater understanding, and then let you interact with them in a better way that furthers both of your relationship in a healthy way. Just for how I view it, obviously. But
yeah, I think that's true. I think the more of a leap you're taking when empathizing, the more risk there is. I think that makes sense. But I think it's inevitable. I think that in a projection is also inevitable. I think there's no way to know. There's no way to ever know if you, even if you're empathizing with somebody, right? Even if somebody says they're feeling something and you empathize with it, we don't always know what we're feeling, or we often don't know what we're feeling. We think we're feeling things that we're not, or we don't understand why we're feeling, or we're feeling something close to that. So
the only reason I guess I fight against the subconscious thing, and I could be standing like in the field of a lot of psychology, so I could be totally fucking wrong. But so I said earlier, like, I don't believe in repression. I think that most people, or all people, save for injuries or drug use, have access to all of their thoughts. Like, I think that, like, if I truly ask, like, why are you upset? I don't believe that, like, we block that out so hard that we can't even remember it. One, because that doesn't fit with like my Evo psych view of how people develop, and two, because I honestly can't even conceive of that, save for a drug or an injury. But like, yeah, so this is why I like to assume that most people have access to all of their thoughts, with the exception of some things. Like, I would call this, in a very woo-woo way, in a very Britney way, I would call there might be a vibe or a mood that you're not 100% aware of. So this might be something like being tired or being hungry. These are things that might influence your thoughts you're not aware of. But at some point, I can bring in awareness about these things. I don't know if the psychodynamic model gives you full access to your subconscious. I don't remember if that is the case. I think it doesn't. But yeah, go ahead.
So in the way I'm talking about it, the model of the unconscious and the conscious.
Mm-hmm.
I think the mechanisms by which I believe those actually function are more like, not that you have thoughts that you can't access, because that doesn't really make sense. I feel like if we define a thought as like a actual conscious thought, I feel like that makes sense. Mm-hmm. But more like a belief that ties together all your thoughts that you're not aware of. Mm-hmm. And so you can have a bunch of thoughts that seem unrelated. Like if like when I said earlier, I think you have a belief that people are vampires and are trying to use you when they're being intimate, and that they're not going to respect your boundaries. They're going to try to take shit from you. That you can see that you have a lot of, I don't think you have ever said that, but you've said a lot of things that, to me, like if you had like a bouquet of thoughts, they would all kind of like lead back to that. Like,
sure,
belief.
You might be able to connect thoughts in a way where somebody's like, I don't know why, but I'm always nervous when I drive to the store. I'm always fucking nervous when this happens. And at some point you might say like, hey, like how is your car? And you're like, well, the brakes are like super squishy, and I've gotten in a couple accidents when it's like, maybe you're not nervous going to these places. Maybe you're just nervous like driving your vehicle.
Exactly.
Like, yeah, sure. In that way, sure.
And so
yeah, I can agree that's possible. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you say that, it's not it's not literally that they actually have that belief somewhere tucked away in a box.
It's like a relational thing, not like a hidden fact of their mind thing, right?
Yeah, it's just a lens. It's like a constellation. It's like you're saying, what if we take all these dots and we draw a different picture? And if I draw the picture, it like resonates with you much more and explains a lot more of not just of how you feel and helps you connect to those feelings, but also helps you figure out what you need to do about those feelings if you're trying to figure it out. Sure. And then I do think that also, as far as like emotions being physical sensations that you can be aware of, or like mental sensations, that you can tune them out and not be aware of them, and or misplace them or misinterpret them. And I think that if you can look at somebody else's body language and find out, you can guess that they are tired. Like with babies, this happens all the time, where like they're kids, like you can tell when kids are tired, but they don't know they're tired.
They have vibes that they don't. Yeah, 100%. A kid will. Yeah, I know.
Right, and you have to inform them that they're tired, and then convince them to like see what happens. Just like, okay, lay down for 5 minutes and see what happens, and then they go to sleep for 10 hours.
Yeah, this is every parent has done this, where it's like, okay, I've done this time. Like, listen, if you don't think you're tired, that's fine. Lay down for 5 minutes. If you're still awake, you can stay awake all night.
Right.
Like every parent has made that deal with their kid a million times, and they lay down for 5 minutes, and they're asleep in like 2 minutes. So yeah.
Yeah, and so I think that works also, but with adults, with all kinds of emotions of sensing that somebody else is sad or angry or whatever. And and any time you're doing that, I agree with you. There's a risk, especially if you do it a lot like I do and say you're doing it a lot, there's a risk that you're wrong. And when you're wrong, you're not being empathetic. You're being the opposite of empathetic. You're making the other person invisible, especially when the read you have contradicts what they're saying about themselves. Then you're taking even more huge risk. You're either being incredibly empathetic. You're saying, I am willing to stand in the face of you telling me that I'm wrong, and I'm willing to deal with all the conflict and anger about that's going to arise. And I'm still telling you, I think you're feeling this. You're either being like at your most empathetic or your least.
Sure.
Would you say, Max, that when you kind of engage, you often discern very accurately what people are feeling? Like you're right a lot of the time?
I think I am right a lot of the time.
Yeah, that's what I suspect, that you're pretty intuitive in reading people. I think that the trade-off that you get when you're right a lot of the time is that when you're wrong, it's way harder to know it, because you've kind of like got all this evidence of being right.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's why I'm careful to couch it in terms of being a lens or a constellation, because you can't be wrong about a constellation in the stars. It's more just like being wrong means you drew something that just doesn't resonate with the other person. It doesn't actually explain anything. It's not going to bear anything out, and it's not going to lead to any like productive action on their part. It just doesn't. It's functionless and doesn't describe anything except something that you yourself think or feel. I think that's projection. But yeah,
Right.
I think, yes, I get a lot of feedback that I'm right, and that makes me more sure that I'm right, which makes me take more risks.
And then probably because of that, you've also been right when people have said you're wrong. And then like a week to a couple months later, they're like, holy shit, you were right. Have you also gotten that feedback?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's kind of what I suspected based on like your certainty of some of these like evaluations of other people.
Yep, 100%. And I've had this exact same thing happen too, but initially I thought it was like a cool, like, oh yeah, mind reading shit. But then I realized later on that like, fuck, when I'm right, which is pretty often, I'm pretty right. But when I'm wrong, I'm really wrong, like destructively so. And I
Yeah.
have to be careful because now I'm not sure. There are times where I might have been wrong and I actually didn't realize, but I was so strong in my convictions that I either mind fucked the other person into thinking I was right,
Yes.
or yeah, which is an issue, especially because I have a strong personality, so I can do that.
Yes.
Or I was just right and they were wrong, and or I'm sorry, they were right and I was wrong, but I never even really validated that. And I don't. If I learned anything from psychology, it's that I never trust my own memory on these things unless you're like writing things down, because you'll always remember like wins or correct guesses more than you will incorrect guesses. So that's, for me personally, I'm not saying anybody else, but that's why I tried to cut back on that behavior myself, because I was really worried that I'm going to get into a world. I always get worried that I'm going to be in a world where I'm bullshitting myself constantly, and then I've somehow inhibited my ability to recognize that. That's really scary to me.
Yeah. I would say I would have this similar experience. Like I'm highly, highly intuitive as well. Always right when I like about what's internally going on for people. But then, yeah, when I'm wrong, I'm really wrong. And because I'm so often right and I'm very confident in it, it can do like a lot of harm to somebody if I convince them of a falsity about themselves.
Yeah, I've definitely.
Unironically, that's like the perfect way to construct, and I know I've done this before. It's the perfect way to construct a really convincing gaslighter, because if you're with a person, and I can tell this. I think Kyla said it, but also like you're Max. You have a very strong personality, right? Like you'll fill a room and run over anybody that's not like capable of standing up to it. And you are at the very least like decently intelligent, if not more so, and like decently intuitive emotionally. And that makes for a very dangerous combination of you being able to gaslight the fuck out of somebody if you truly are incorrect about what they feel. I know I've done this to people, and it's again one of the reasons why I try to be really careful about it, because it's like, fuck, if I'm wrong, like I totally mind fuck this chick, and I probably should have just shut the fuck up and listened to them, because like I could actually convince them that they're wrong about their own feelings, because like I know all the arguments and I know what to look out for and I know how to say things very convincingly, and I have a very like type A personality. So if they're not ready to stand up to it, they're just gonna end up going along with whatever, which is something I try to be avoidant of now.
Yeah, I try to mitigate that by making sure. This might annoy you, Kyla, but I think part of why I was so unhinged when I was screaming about you is to actually provide a grain of salt for what I'm saying. I think that I want to make it clear, if I'm feeling boiling rage when somebody asks me about your therapy ethics, and I instead, in a very level-headed and calm manner, say, like, well, I think that she is blah, 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 and I think that her ethics are terrible and blah, blah, blah. I feel like there's something wrong with me not disclosing that I am full of boiling rage. And so, while you may think that my explosive, hyperbolic expression of that was unfair to you, I think in another way, I am trying to acknowledge my own emotional response, so that people know I'm having it, because I think it undermines what I'm saying, obviously, if I'm screaming about it. And the same thing with Dr. K. I keep talking about how he reminds me of my father and how all these like triggering things about it, because I don't want, I am also haunted by the possibility that I will be projecting but convince everybody that I'm not by concealing it. So I try to be really emotional when I'm talking about how I think other people are feeling, so that anybody listening knows my emotional state when I'm making the read.
Yeah. Have you ever, so one thought I've also had about mind reading, that I've had to at least learn is that even if you're right, I've noticed sometimes that if you tell people what you've mind read about them, even if you're fucking completely accurate, it actually
They'll be
like takes,
invested in fighting that read.
well, actually I was going to say it takes away, like say they even accept it wholeheartedly, it might
Oh,
actually
okay.
like take away their ability to like grow on their own 2 feet and like integrate that self-realization as like deeply and as like well as they
Yeah.
potentially need to.
I think of this as me being somebody's emotional trash can. This is like a concept that I talk about a lot with Shaylin, where when you point something out to somebody who's not ready to hear it, they can react by not needing to think about it because you're thinking about it for them or you're expressing it for them. I feel like this happens a lot with, like, if you have a friend who's in an abusive relationship and you say your boyfriend or girlfriend is like terrible, why don't you break up with them? They get to then take the position of just feeling like defensive and like they love the person, and then suddenly you're the person who's realized they're in an abusive relationship and they no longer have to, and then you're just kind of carrying that knowledge for them.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
So I also think that's another pitfall is if you're right about your read about somebody's feelings and you tell them, even if you're right, and even if they think you're right, if they're not ready to hear it, you can just be, you could just be the person, the thing that holds all the bad thoughts they don't want to deal with.
Yeah, exactly. You're kind of like the hero when like people need to be their own like eternal hero to some degree, right?
Yeah, and then they get rid of you also
So
eventually.
I think a large portion of my frustration is I was pretty sure that you were highly intuitive and like a pretty good read. And so it felt really frustrating to me to see you read me so poorly. And it felt really off because generally I feel like you probably would have a good read. And so it felt like everything that I had like come to value in you and your art kind of felt like a lie because it was like, well, if he's so off about this, where does this end?